Who wants to raise their hand and say what it stands for? Yes.
World Improved by Tenafly students.
Okay, so this group is responsible for improving the world. I
Good.
anticipate major changes coming shortly. They have graced our room the last 2 years, I think, right, Nurse Hess?
Yeah, 2 years,
To acknowledge Children's Products Safety Month. Awareness Month, okay? And that's great, because we all know that if you read the newspapers, there are times when these products aren't so safe. And did you say you have a spokesman that wants to say something?
I have 2 that want to say something briefly.
Okay. Step forward, please.
But
Could you just
a
tell
little
us?
bit of history for the 2 new council people. The Wits Club went to Trenton, and it took them about 4.5 years to have Governor Christie make this bill in 2013. And part of the bill is every year there'll be a proclamation, and the children have decided to do it in their own hometown.
Well, I wish they would have advocated for the ARC tunnel. Would you just, before you read, just state your name, because this is going to be recorded and you'll be able to watch it on Channel 77. So we need to know who's speaking.
You're on TV.
Do your speech. Say good evening first.
Good evening, Mayor Rustin and Tenafly council members. Hi, I am Aladdin. Hi, I am Gia. We, the children of Wits Club, have requested that Tenafly Council designate the month of November in Tenafly as Children's Product Safety Awareness Month by proclamation.
We wrote to you because the Wits Club wants to increase public awareness of the importance of play in the lives of children, and the need to be vigilant about the safety of children's projects so that play can be safe, fun, and vigorous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to read this proclamation, and then I'm going to give it to you.
Immediately done.
Whereas research shows that play is a crucial component of children's development, among other benefits. Play encourages creativity, improves coordination and strength, allows children to engage with one another, and provides an outlet for emotional expression. And whereas it is the duty and responsibility of product manufacturers, parents, federal and state governments to ensure that the toys children play with and with other products used by children are safe and encourage well-being and healthy development. And whereas in many instances, however, parents have found it difficult to access timely and accurate information about the safety of products used by their children, and American consumers have oftentimes been unaware of or confused by safety recalls of children's products. And whereas at the national level, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, and at the state level, the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, are charged with providing consumers with relevant and accurate information regarding the safety of consumer products and assuring that these products are safe for the use by the public. And whereas it is in the public interest for parents to be educated about the important role of play in children's lives and to be aware about resources available to parents to verify the safety of children's products in their homes. And whereas the Tenafly Mayor and Council urge Tenafly parents to be selective in their toys and children's products when choosing such items to bring into their homes as we approach the holiday season. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Peter S. Rustin, do hereby proclaim the month of November as the Children's Product Safety Awareness Month in the borough of Tenafly.
Very nice.
And we applaud you and your predecessors, the people that were in this club the last couple of years, for bringing this to our attention and helping make this a reality. And for you to go to Trenton and do exactly the same thing is wonderful. It's really marvelous. You set an example not only for your fellow students, but for all the adults in Tenafly. Thank you.
Thank you.
What else do we say? Are we going to see them? Make them laugh? Ask them. Mayor Rustin, they want to know if they're still going to see you tomorrow.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Yes.
I'll be there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nurse Hess.
Thank you for giving the children this experience.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thank you for giving us this experience.
How many of you actually have been to Trenton then? two.
Actually, some of the brothers and sisters, but
Brothers
none
and
of these
sisters?
yet, starting
You guys gotta get down.
2009. Well, we're writing Governor Murphy a letter. I'm gonna sign it tomorrow.
Excellent.
So we may get invited back. Governor Christie
When you
has-
go to Trenton, we'll come with you. We'll come with you too.
Sounds like a
Yeah,
plan. Sounds
That's
like a
right.
plan.
And did one of you make the shirts? I love the shirts.
Max, that's because we don't have the influence to see the
No,
governor,
that's
but
your
they do.
assessment.
Absolutely, you kidding?
The lady in Burgerfield makes them. Pyramid shirts.
Stillman's the best.
Thank you. And did you tell them, because some of the children are new?
Stillman rules.
But tell them why Stillman rules.
'Cause I went there.
He went there. Yes, and then when
Stillman's the
Stillman-
best.
What do
Don't
you
forget
think of
that.
that?
And if you guys want, on your way out, Sam Bruno from the Board of Education is here. You guys should tell him what you're working on as well.
Yeah,
Super, thank you very much.
Mom rocks.
Does anybody have anything
Mom!
to say?
Oh, rocks.
Well, thank you very much. We have a crowded agenda, so we're gonna move on.
We'll see Mayor Reston tomorrow.
So,
Thank
Anyhow,
you.
thank you guys.
Still
Thank
got
you.
so much improved since you left.
Awesome. Awesome.
An extra step.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Tomorrow.
Good work out there.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. See you manana.
I'm proud of Nurse Hess. She and I graduated high school together.
Whoa.
Although she skipped a lot of grades, so she's a lot younger than me. But this is a nice group. I'm not sure. I would assume some of the other elementary schools have similar clubs, but I'm not really aware of them. It's a nice group.
I
Nice
drove,
concept.
I drove two of them home at 6 o'clock, and they're like, "We'll see you in an hour." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Okay, let's go on with LoSAP.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay. We have to keep this open, so we will try to go a little further away. Who put Lisette, who's talking about LoSAP?
Well, the fire department wrote a proposal on making changes to the LoSAP, but in order to fully understand the proposal, we needed somebody to explain the genesis of why these changes are being requested.
Okay, but for those that are, LoSAP is an incentive program which encourages, and I believe it's also with TVAC, encourages volunteers to participate more. Because it's hard to send out an ambulance if you don't have enough staff, and it's also hard to send out a fire truck if the people don't show up. So LoSAP is an incentive program which encourages our volunteers to step up, and compared to having a paid fire department, it's a relatively inexpensive way of getting things done. Anybody have any thoughts on the proposal?
I think that we should think about that and come back to it. We got a letter, we can think about it and come back and.
Well, we
Well,
got,
Lieutenant Greeley was asked to come here to explain the letter.
Explain it first.
Yeah.
Before you
yeah,
make
I mean,
a
we've had the letter for a while, I mean, enough time to look at it, but you, Mike, do you want to talk
Sure.
about what you're looking to do?
So everyone has a copy of the letter I sent to Councilman Borzolato. The LoSAP committee meets quarterly within the department to monitor the potential stipend. And part of the LoSAP committee's charge is in line with our incentive committee, which is to try to bolster participation among the members. We have seen several things happen over the last couple of years where the demand on our current firefighters and prospective firefighters has increased almost twofold. So once upon a time, it took a new firefighter 2 weeks of class, 8 hours a day, to receive that firefighter certification. Now we're going into now it's into 4 weeks to be a commanding officer within the fire department. Went from being a week. Now it's gone into the second week, closing it on the third week. So the state continually changes and increases the demands that are placed on current firefighters. To add to this, we also have the mandates that require us to continue our performance within the department, trainings and such, but then also we've added on several different things over the last couple of years which have demanded our attention and more participation on the part of the members. Specifically, one of the ones that probably takes a large portion of people's time is the junior program, which I think is a great benefit to our community. It's something that we're looking to cultivate and facilitate a community service-minded individual within our town with the young people, and have them not only have stock within our community, but also hopefully be able to learn and contribute to wherever they end up as an adult. So it's something that is very important to us, but this is also very demanding on our time. And so as we've looked at our incentive over the last several years, we find that on a given quarter, we have roughly 15 to 20 firefighters that qualify for our quarterly incentive. For the yearly incentive, which is a LoSAP, which is now the culmination of the entire year's worth of service, we see that there's anywhere between 15 again and 20. For the last year, the goal number was 15 or 16 members qualified for the LoSAP. Through many conversations, we've established that there is I believe, a correlation between the incentives that's there, enunciating within the department what's eligible for them, but also trying to tie in that benefit to the actions that we take. We have firefighters, and these are all community-based members, people that are volunteering their times, in many cases putting their lives on the line for the folks here in Tenafly and our neighboring communities. And what we're trying to do is bolster that participation, where we're seeing a dip in the number of firefighters responding to calls in the evening, and so we're trying to increase that. And if we're able to tie in a direct benefit to their participation, showing up, whether it's something as simple as a parade or as fun as a parade, or as dangerous as going into a 3-alarm fire in Englewood or Teaneck, these are things that we want to encourage our firefighters to participate with. We, as a collective, we love this town, and the people are motivated and they're happy, but really nowadays more and more it seems that the life balance is becoming more challenging. And we are put in a position where we should start to identify ways to increase our level of participation, and perhaps maybe the benefit for our firefighters to take time out of their days and nights to come down and serve the good people here at Tenafly. I did some brief numbers, and so I'll just give you these to, because in addition to changing how the LoSAP is administered, it is also a request to increase the amount, and I know that the dollar amount matters. So if I could just pass these around, you can look at them if you want to go over them and just discuss them. That's the current number that's based in the ordinance that I found, so it's actually under the 1,200 number that I quoted in the letter. But that's according to ordinance, give me here, if I can just find it, 2-48. But I did that based on an elevated participation for yearly LoSAP. And so that's a proposal based on the proposed increase to the 1,600 for 20 members receiving that benefit, 30 members receiving that benefit, and 40 members receiving that benefit. Our counterparts over at the Volunteer Ambulance Corps, they typically receive about 20 to 25 of their members are eligible for their LoSAP benefit. Their numbers are slightly less than ours, and in fairness, their call volume is relatively high compared to ours. I believe they did about 150 additional runs than we did last year. But nevertheless, I think that it is a valuable tool to help cultivate the interest of the volunteers, and a way that we can show appreciation for the time spent by the folks that dedicate their time to our community.
Mike, before you go any further, so just looking at this briefly to make sure that we all understand this, your proposal, should there be 40 eligible recipients, and you're telling us normally there's between 15 and 20?
Correct.
If just about everybody in the department, how many people do we have in the department now?
We're pushing 46.
Okay, so if there were 40, the current cost for a total cost is, because I'm looking at, I'm thinking 18,000 a person. That's
No.
$18,000 for the entire department. Should 40 people be eligible, which is
Correct.
not likely. If we take the numbers, the current numbers, 20 people, it would run us about $9,000.
Correct. And those increases are mandated by the state and state ordinance. So this is not something that we can come in and offer, to balloon that number to a much larger. This is regulated by the state. And
Well, when you
those
say
numbers
are we required to do this?
You are not required to
Okay,
do
so
that.
but
This is up to the governing body to change and transition.
But
any elements of LoSAP.
What's mandated by the state? When you say it's,
No, LoSAP is not mandated by the state. So LoSAP, the history, as the history goes, roughly 25 or 30 years ago, I'm sorry, maybe 25 years ago,
hold on, wait a second, okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
About 25 years ago, the governing body saw fit to buy in, for lack of a better word, into the LoSAP benefit. And the LoSAP program then allowed for the stipend amount to be a certain number. And they recognized they didn't want to be overbearing on the community, but offer that benefit. Through their administration over the years, they allowed for increases, and albeit small increases, but if you wish, I actually have the increases in here if it's of interest to somebody.
Well,
But,
quick question. Would you say that LoSAP what part does LoSAP play in encouraging new people to come aboard?
It won't necessarily factor in so much as bringing new members in as much as it's going to encourage older members to stay. I think for a younger person, the benefit would be we're setting up essentially a deferred compensation plan where when you get to a certain age, you can now you're eligible for that. And so I guess for a younger member, if they're going to have a length of service here within the borough of Tenafly of any significance, perhaps then there is the benefit inherent to that extra time that they spend from a young person growing up and remaining active in the community.
No, but Mike, I'm gonna just correct you. It's a benefit for all the members. It's a way to keep them, whether you're young or old, it doesn't matter. Once you join the department, this is something, an incentive to keep them wanting to keep coming back, per se, across the board.
Any questions, please?
Yeah. See, my son was also a ambulance, and he got the highest number of calls of anybody in the ambulance. And the reason he got the higher is because there is a requirement in the existing LoSAP that you have to have a certain percentage to respond to a certain percentage of calls. That's the all incentive to basically have the people come in when you have a call, to sleep home and get points without having to participate to any calls because you are on duty or whatever you want to call it, standby, to go and have a coffee with a person and get points without participating in the calls at night or during the day. It completely destroys the actual incentive of the LoSAP, which was based on the fact that you have to have a certain percentage of participation in the actual calls. So to remove that percentage participation will be exactly the opposite of U1, which is to want people to be on calls. It's basically creates a laissez-faire type, oh, you know, I was on call, I'm gonna get 5 points. I don't have to come to actually respond. So there is a real question about the disincentive that you create now by removing the minimum participation in the number of calls in order to qualify.
That's not what that says here.
Well,
Yes.
no,
That's not what that says here at all.
Yes, it does.
Can you show me where,
Yeah,
please?
and I'm gonna read it to you. Participation in department response 50 points maximum. Each member shall be required to respond to and credited for attendance of a minimum 35% of the cost to which the fire department is dispatched.
Correct.
In the new one,
Correct.
the 35% is gone. You don't have to come anymore to the calls.
No, that's
Yeah.
not what that says. No, absolutely not. What, you think
Yeah, let's read it.
You get to
Let's
stay
read it.
home and you're
Let's-
gonna get points
yes.
for
I
that?
think
No.
Lieutenant Greeley wants to
Yes.
comment as well.
Yes,
No.
you get participation at 50 points maximum. Each member shall be required to respond to calls for which the department is dispatched. It doesn't mean that you come to 35. You can come to 3. And then if you read,
But if you come to 3, you're not getting a LoSAP.
no, it doesn't require to be a certain percentage. The percentage call is taken out. If I said, okay, you know, you're my friend, come to 3 calls. You are the dispatch in 3 calls. Then here comes the next thing, you know, overnight standbys. You stay at home, you sleep, it's an overnight standby.
No.
Well, Matt, I think fundamentally here, in order for you to achieve the LoSAP, you need this minimum of 100 points. If you get 99 points, you don't get the LoSAP. But you have 100 points to be eligible for the LoSAP. what we have crafted here is essentially 50% maximum for the points. So that's 50% of the possible points that you can achieve. You are able to
By
get
calls.
that through your
But what you don't have over
participation.
here is
A
that you have
quarter.
a minimum 100 points responding to calls. That's what is missing in this type of the criteria to be able to.
You just said you need a minimum of 100 points to qualify.
Correct.
Where does that say that?
Let's see.
That's statutory?
That's what's currently in the ordinance.
So
That's
in other words,
statutory.
that would remain.
That would
It's
remain,
not
yes.
changed. So in other words, it looks like they're trying to change to a certain degree the various maximums and the way you acquire points, but you still need to acquire 100 points in order to be eligible for LoSAP.
With the exception that those 100 points now can be acquired for actions that are not related to responding directly to the calls of the fire department, which this was specifically.
No,
That's
actually,
LoSAP.
that's
Huh?
incorrect.
If a
Totally
person-
incorrect,
If a
actually.
person doesn't show up for any calls, so just to take your argument to the extreme,
Yeah.
if a person doesn't show up to any calls,
Yeah.
but they show up to all of our drills, meetings, and trainings,
And
they'll
sleepovers.
get 25 points for that. Let's say they're the president of the
And the
association.
sleepovers, on
We don't
so-called.
do sleepovers.
Well, whatever, let's call it, it's the,
No,
what do you call it?
that's standbys for storms. That's not we don't do that per night like TVAC does.
Standbys at the firehouse. Max.
That's only if there's a major incident projected,
not
major
standing by at
storm,
home.
then we'll sleep over.
And it's a
No,
maximum
but
of
it-
21
okay.
points.
So if we
Where's
do
that?
that, we're now at 25 points. That's for drills, meetings, and cleanings. So we require attendance at meetings and such. That's an additional 25 points. That brings us up to 50 points. And let's say you're the president of the association, which is a fairly
Yeah.
involved position, if you can imagine. That only puts them at 70 points.
Yeah.
So I mean, unless you
So
start
now you
going,
only have
unless
to
we go,
You
so
you
unless
still
we
need
go
to
to.
respond to 60 calls.
So let's say we make it to the new proposed section, which is miscellaneous activities. That's 21 points maximum, so that's for wakes, the weather-related standbys, the overnight standbys, as stated, work details or community outreach parades.
That's
In
92.
that event, this person now is at 91%.
Yeah, so he can come to 10 calls and be done.
But clearly, he's
20.
participating and giving back to the community in a sense that.
But this is the incentive, the LoSAP incentive was to, that's why we had a specific percentage, so they come to the calls. Everything else is fine, but the whole idea is come to the calls. And if you take that part away, if you keep it in, we will not have a problem. But if you take that part which calls you to come, then we basically open up the LoSAP to all kind of activities and disincent exactly what we wanted, which is coming to the calls. So this is where I'm having a problem.
What is what initiated the idea of eliminating the 35% of the calls?
It's simply not working for the members. I mean, if we have less than a third of our members enjoying this benefit, then it's not doing what it was intended to do, which is to bolster that overall involvement from the department.
I mean, if you have, for example, 45 people in the department, 1/3 of them respond to every call, just every call.
Yeah.
That's 15 people. Is that sufficient for 90% of the calls you have? 15 people?
No, if there's
It
15
varies.
total, then
It
fine.
varies, but, so if you have 15 people who respond to.
Well, that's 1/3 of your department, 1/3 of the calls.
It depends on the severity of the call. And
Well,
then
I'm saying-
the issue that we encounter, and this is why we have reserves at every call that come in, is that, we have clumps of calls that come in, and so we don't just get dispatched to one incident at one area in town, but rather, as one call comes in, a second call comes in, and so that becomes an issue for us to handle.
I'd love to hear from Dan or Jeff.
Two questions,
Susan has a
Mike.
comment.
This quarterly or annual?
That's annual.
Annual. Second question. For the way you want to restructure the point system for the calls to 0.5 points, members won't be in trouble of being too short.
Well, in order to get the 50 points required, they would have to make 100 calls, so the 50 maximum
Right.
points, that would be 100 calls on the year, which is roughly 1/5 of the entire calls that we see per year, roughly. So,
So
I
it's
think
half.
that it's.
There's enough
very-
calls to make the max is what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
So
It's actually
Mike,
tougher than
so I have a report that was supplied to our auditors. So last year, there was 559 calls,
Okay.
correct?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
So on an average throughout the years, is that a pretty?
That's been average over the last 5 years, I'd say.
So my question to you is, in order to make the 35%, somebody would have to do 195 calls. Is this becoming a problem where the volunteers feel that it's excessive? And that's why you're doing 0.5 so that they could do 100 calls? And would you have the manpower to do
The
that?
35% calls is a challenging number for most members to make. The members who are most active in our department are our two chiefs, Chief Philpott and Chief Frederick, Deputy Chief Frederick. For them, they probably on a given average, the two of them are probably in the neighborhood of 450 to 500 calls a year. They're very active. They go to every call virtually. A typical firefighter is going to be closer to that 100 to 150 range. And then we have those group that are able to jump over that. The number of firefighters that tip over those, I can't say with certainty. If you wish, I can furnish that number for you. But I would say it's not much higher than what that 35% number is.
Okay.
So do I understand, is there a particular time of day or days of the week where you're having issues of people being less responsive?
Every fire meeting that we go to, our Chief Philpott, encourages us, sometimes with strong words, to bolster our evening hour response. We've had a benefit of having our DPW workers. Some of them are active with the fire department and they respond during the daytime, and that's really helped us on the daytime. But still, at the nighttime, we've had that issue. And that's
So would it make sense to consider changing this so that there's a slightly higher point award system for evening as opposed to?
We base these schedules, we'll call them, on what other communities have done and what they've transitioned to. Really, there's two things at play. You have the LoSAP, which is more long game minded, and that's to try to have members continue their participation long term. And then we have more immediate benefits, which comes through our incentive. So the incentive is tied to the clothing allowance, and then that's something that we work with quarterly, where then you would be issued some reimbursement for the time that you spent within the community. That really has been the more pivotal of the two. We're discussing now revamping our incentive criteria to either weight more heavily the evening hour participation, or look to go back to a system where we used to have two different groups that would go out, and we'd have that way it's less demanding on the people overall. But during those periods where they're on call, they would be required to come in and increase their participation. So we're analyzing that.
What do you
trying
mean
to
the
figure
two
that out.
different groups?
We used to have two groups within the fire department, and what happened is they were on call. So for 2 weeks you'd be on call, and if an evening call came in, you were responsible for showing up during the evening. The group that was not on call wouldn't be chastised for the calls that they didn't participate in on the evening tours. So we're looking at going back potentially to that type of model. We got away from that because our participation was not working. So we tried something new within our authority, and over the last several years since we've transitioned away, it hasn't been overly effective.
Didn't get the results you wanted.
Exactly. So we're not only looking at this as a benefit. This just happened to come first, but we're also looking at other ways we can bolster our participation. It's in our forethought. Really, it is that the demands on firefighters now more than ever have increased. And they require us to continue our education. They require us to be sharp, and all the things that are necessary for us to be safe working in the community in a very hazardous type environment are things that require that attention. But it also takes away from the time that we can spend in our jobs with our families. And so, these two things are in competition.
So I'm listening to Max's point about that. If you take away this minimum, you don't really have to show up.
Yeah.
What I would actually like to see is a minimum of evening calls.
Okay.
So for the first point where we're changing and we're taking out the 35%, so each member shall be required to respond to calls with a minimum of 10% evening calls or something, so that not only do we fix the evening plan, but we have some sort of you can't take none. I think here I agree that you can actually achieve your points you know, it's difficult, but you almost can do it with not responding to any evening calls. Now, if there's a health issue or something, you know, obviously you could figure out a way around that, but I think if you're gonna be part of receiving these benefits, maybe that's how you do it, you do a minimum.
There should be some sort of, the whole LoSAP program is to incentivize people to come to the calls. The rest of them are niceties. So as long as we basically don't have any incentive here to come to the calls, it's very difficult to say, all right. So if you have like, you know, 50-point minimum in call responses, that would be the equivalent of 100 calls. That would be the equivalent of 25%. That would basically replace your 35% with a number that you feel it's reasonable or something like that. But that should be something that will incentivize for people to come to the call. The rest of them are nice for, you know, all the stuff. Training is important. So those are things that I would look for personally.
Yeah, but they have 35% now. They're saying that people are struggling to make that,
Yeah.
and you want to take that and raise it to 50%.
No. 50 calls for 50 points.
calls.
50 points, which is 100 calls.
Right.
100 calls from 500, it's only 20%.
I think that I would even go even
So
lower
you want
maybe.
to say-
Whatever, but it's
Okay.
the
Like a
idea
low
is
minimum, but
you need to
something-
have an
something.
incentive in order to get everything else to come to the calls.
Tony?
Some sort of lower minimum.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a question for Bill. Do we need to, I mean, this doesn't even have to be approved by the council. I mean, we.
It's an
wait-
ordinance.
Wait a second, no, wait, hold on. Calm yourselves. We have already established LoSAP in the fire department. How we tweak it as far as participation, whether a member makes 35% for calls and makes 10% for drills or whatever, that's up to the fire department.
No,
That's-
it's in the
No, it's an
ordinance.
ordinance. It's an
To
ordinance.
ordinance.
create
Okay,
LoSAP or abolish it, you have to have a referendum. To make changes is codification, you have to make changes to the ordinance. You don't have to put it on the ballot to make changes.
Okay, but I'll just say this also.
We're looking to change the ordinance.
To get rid of it, you have to
You know,
have
being on the fire
To
department
create
for all
or
the
get
years
rid
that
of
I've been
is
on,
referendum.
referendum.
I will tell you, it is extremely difficult to obtain that 35%.
Yeah, so we can
Extremely
lower it.
difficult.
We can
I
lower
mean,
that.
the calls keep going up and up and up. They don't, certainly never reduce. So I think they've put a lot of homework into trying to balance everything, both from the responding calls, drills. I mean, you know,
So-
being a firefighter in Tenafly is just not responding to calls. There's
So-
other entities that they have to achieve.
Let me ask, Mike, I hear what members of the council are saying. Do you find the number 100 calls, or roughly 20%, to be onerous? Do you feel that's something, in other words, I understand their concern, I think you do too, but we want to have something in place that you're comfortable
I can
with.
speak to the character of the individuals that work in the Tenafly, or volunteer for the Tenafly Fire Department. And I can assure you that there are no individuals in our community that are active with the fire department that would work really, really hard to get their 100 calls from January to the first week of February, and then not participate in another call throughout the entirety of the year. You know, the people that do participate and give of their time, you know, again, they have to walk, and they are balancing their lives and the demands of their families and their workplaces. And at some points, you have to say, you know, do I really want to go to this call right now? And so for some people, you know, they're not going to just blitz out so they can achieve this benefit. They're going to participate because they feel the calling to participate.
But
We're
they
just
have to
trying to
participate the
give them
whole
that
year.
extra little push in the event that it's that late night call. Trying to give them that little push,
Yeah.
and your point is still taken. I understand. If you've already gotten your 50 points, you know, what stops you from participating or not participating?
Yeah.
And it's a valid point. The flip side of that, just something to consider though, is that for the people that throughout the entirety of the year, perhaps maybe they're now at 25%. There's no likelihood of them getting 35%. So because they're not getting the 35%, they are not getting their low.
So we agreed
Their
to change,
participation's
you
not
know,
gonna
we
be
can
there.
adjust
So
that.
hold on, Matt.
Potentially.
So I understand. I think the suggestion might be the best of both worlds. Give them something that's attainable,
Yeah.
assuming they want to be part
Exactly.
of the department. The concern is, if you don't have a minimum, there could be somebody, and I don't know, the guys that I know, that's not gonna be the case. But nevertheless, it leads over the opportunity for somebody to pretty much get to LoSAP without making very many calls. You know that that's not gonna be the situation, but I think there's a comfort level here, because we're being asked to add probably a minimum of $10,000 to the LoSAP program, which is not, small change. Do you think that the department would be comfortable with that?
With a amendment to try to
A minimum of 100 calls over the course of the year.
Yeah.
That's what he's
You
proposing.
you can't do that. You
No,
cannot do
that's
that.
too high of a minimum. I'm saying minimum
No,
of
what is-
10%
That is
evening
what he's
calls,
using.
and that's,
But
Well, that's not what I heard
Lauren,
Max said.
That's, it's splitting hairs. Let's put a number.
it's a minimum, so it should be a low number. It shouldn't be the highest max that you're reaching. It should be a minimum.
But the high, are we talking 100 calls? That's 20%. 100 calls, they have 500 calls a year.
But you're missing, not all of them respond to 500 calls. Each of them respond to 100 and 150 calls.
That's what we're trying to
realistic.
say.
Out of that, how many do you want them to be evening calls? How many do you want them to be?
There will be
Well,
the second
well, I
degree.
mean,
First, respond to
perhaps-
100.
perhaps
I'll
they
do
might
this.
be-
Yeah.
First, Peter, this is what you got, if you look, what was the number that he said actually makes the LoSAP?
15 to 20,
Okay, out of 46
right.
men in the department, what they're trying to do is they're trying to change it so more can.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
get
I don't want to put time, like
Yeah.
evening or day, because for
can't do
example, a lot of you guys that do our DPW don't live in town.
Exactly, no, I
They're
agree
there
with that.
to make the day calls, while the guys that live in town
Make
often
them-
work out of town.
Exactly.
So
Actually,
you don't-
most of the calls are
But
actually.
I think the number of 100, which works out to about 20%, unless you tell me otherwise, I think that's a reasonable compromise.
Exactly.
But that's what his proposal is. That's what his proposal is.
No, right now there is no.
it's not.
There
No,
is
no.
0.5 is 100 calls.
Correct.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
say
it.
you have to
It's
have.
not
That's the
it's
maximum.
not a minimum.
That's a
But
maximum.
There is no minimum. They're saying
Well, we want a
anything-
minimum.
We want a minimum.
Okay, but you'd have to guys see this. Right now, it takes 195 calls to
But there's
get
other
to
stuff.
one,
Only
to
if you put your pen
559.
down.
That's the minimum you would have to do to qualify.
And we were trying to qualify with
Right, but his
100.
proposal is 0.5, which is
Which
a
is-
minimum
This
of
is
100
our
calls.
association president,
No, no.
Max
Hang on
Vanderlyn.
for 1 second.
I
Dan, you
know.
had your hand up, then Max, if you'd like to speak.
That's, you have to
No,
do
no,
100
no.
calls to get the maximum. That's
Yeah,
what you have to do.
but.
I'm sorry, you want to introduce him, please?
This is Max Vanderlyn. He's our association
There
president.
is no.
I've also been on the fire department for 45 years, through the ranks. I just have one statement to make. If the purpose of picking an arbitrary number, 100, and doing that randomly without looking at the spread during the daytime and night, because part of the reason is you have as dedicated firemen that, as you say, work out of town, that absolutely can't make that position of calls during the day. So now, if there is a disproportionate amount of calls between daytime and night, are you doing anything for the people that this is absolutely trying to help? Because they are giving that extra time.
We are
They're-
giving them more than what they need now. Right now, they work out of town, they need to get to 35%, which is 300 or 200 calls. We say we lower it to 100 calls. So we are trying to help. It's not, it's still better than what it was.
And I
What-
like Jeff's idea of giving extra points if you do
Yeah.
the night calls.
I-
I think
I-
that was a solid idea.
I don't think anybody at the table, what I'm hearing, has an issue with what you're doing here. All we'd like to see is a minimum, which it was removed. And being that the 35% minimum was unrealistic, not attainable for some, we're lowering it. So the question, I think we could put this to rest, Mike says he doesn't think that the 100 call limit, which is roughly 20%, is a problem. Your opinion would be very valuable, but if it's not a problem, I think we can put this to bed.
I think, not to be vague about it, but it does sound vague. I think without knowing what that proportion is, it could be a problem, it could not be a problem. The point is, You don't know what you don't know. We don't know. You're picking an arbitrary number at a given point in time that's no better than this given point in time without knowing how that works with what our averages are right now.
Well, I can appreciate that, but we make the proposed change to 100, down from 35%, and come back to us in 6 months or a year and say it's working or it's not working. We're here for you.
Or if you guys think you
We're-
want
we're-
to
we're
discuss
just-
amongst yourselves and come back with a, you know,
I hear a number of people at the table are not comfortable without a minimum. That's all.
Yeah, we don't wanna have a smorgasbord that people come once, twice, and it's important to
If
have
if you were to say-
calls.
Let's take the figure of 550 calls a year as the number for now.
Yeah.
All right, if you were to say, not 100, make it 55, 10%, that would give us something to go on. I threw 100 at Mike, and he seems to think it's probably workable.
If you're able to retain the other adjustments to this, I think that 20% is something that we would gladly take and work with for at least a year as a
I
trial.
don't see any problem with
See
the
how
other
it goes,
stuff.
and then
Just we
if
need
we
to
find-
understand, we have a list of people that, and the calls. We need to understand how many people would be at 100, how many would be qualifying for LoSAP. So we can come back and say, maybe it's 10,000, maybe it's 20,000, and we need to, then we'll work out the numbers.
so we have to
Oh,
start
you have
that
to
hearing.
anticipate every member's gonna make it, Max.
I know, but.
That's what you have to
We have-
anticipate, that's what you have.
We
Do
have
they
the
wanna come
numbers
back
that they
to
did
us?
last
I know
year.
that, but
Jeff?
you
Just,
have to,
just
you have 46
also,
members, 46 members
the
could.
way the letter
But
reads,
we need to
so you
understand
know.
what.
Normally, when you have a document like this, underline things as in your first couple are being eliminated and replaced when you say change to. You've underlined the entire, from fire chief on down to assistant secretary. Technically, that means that you're eliminating that and just changing it to 3 positions. So it wouldn't really be underlined, it would be a proposed addition. Otherwise, if we were to approve this letter as is, all those technically are eliminated, gone.
Yeah, you know, that's, I don't think
Yeah.
that's.
I don't think that-
legalese.
I don't think that's.
Forgive my,
But I don't think that's your intent, right? I just wanna make sure that's
I
not
know
your
that's
intent.
not
That's
his
not your
intent.
Yeah,
Right.
So the
so,
proposed change is
So,
a proposed addition.
I'd like to get to the public hearing.
Yes.
So my question first to Mike and Max is 100 acceptable to you at this time?
I think so.
Let's go back.
Yes.
The second, and then to the council, can we approve this, or?
I think that we could, if Michael comes and said, yeah, that would, what I would like to do is look at the calls that we had last year to understand how many people qualify, which is basically the number of, how much money we'll have to allocate now. Come back and say, is the council agreeable to 50,000,
So what
30,000?
he's asking is, had the number been 100 last year, how many additional people, you said 15 to 20 now? Is it gonna be 20 to 25, is it gonna be 40? All right,
Yeah, and then we can agree to that number.
we give that to the
Yeah, but
clerk,
don't you
as soon as
budget-
possible,
don't you
we'll
budget
get on
for
the agenda
46?
for the next meeting.
Don't you budget for 46?
66,000.
We have to
You
budget
budget
for
for
the
the
full,
max, right?
for the max.
Anticipating the max is gonna
Yes.
make the LoSAP.
Yeah.
You're not saying, well, there's only 10 people, you're budgeting for,
We're budgeting
anticipating for
Actually, it
46.
won't change this list that much
Right,
from last
I mean-
year.
Okay,
All right.
I'll entertain, thank you. I'll entertain a motion
Discuss.
to recess the work
I
session.
would say that if you think the fire
To
department
100,
is
this one
comprised
the
of
I think I heard Lauren say yes, I'm gonna grab it right now. Is
Is
there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go right now,
All right, Michael.
without further ado,
Yeah.
to the public meetings.
Public meeting.
Coming out.
Thank you, sir.
All right, public meeting.
Good evening once again. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the record, Suburbanite and Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag, please. I'm going to separate you two. All right. Right here. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Borzalato?
Here.
Councilmember Bosch?
Here.
Councilmember Gayton?
Here.
Councilmember Grossman?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Mayor Reston?
Okay, minutes to be approved. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes: September 26th, the work session, and the regular meeting. The motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, revisions to the agenda, other
None I
than
know
moving
of.
the agenda around?
Other than moving it around.
Okay, so we're going to go right now to public hearings. We have represented me, am I correct in assuming that we have nobody representing the Saban building or the Bauer Odo building?
Just, some people are confused that, because we're rearranging things, and I think we had some people here for the public comment. So just that, we're gonna
Okay.
go back to that, right?
Go back to what?
Public comment after
Yeah.
with
Follow the
the
format
hearings?
of the
Okay, public comment.
Oh, Are we gonna do that first now?
Yes,
or-
we're gonna do
Why
that.
don't we do that so we, people
Do
that
that
are
now.
here? Yeah, so
I'm
people-
going to go around the room and, once, I don't
We're all
know,
for the theater. I mean, the
you from the theater also?
No, Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo.
Okay, Wells Fargo, the bank.
Okay.
Anybody else care to speak on anything?
Yes, the Tenant Kill Pool Club.
Please.
Okay. Hello, my name is Diana Brick. I represent the Tenant Kill Pool Club Board. Some of the other members are here tonight with me. It's Carol, President Rogers, Secretary.
I read the minutes.
He's got the legs to show.
Doreen, our treasurer. I see these people too much. I am here tonight to speak to you about the Tenant Kill Pool Club. I don't know what your history is, how long you've been a council member, if you're a member of our pool club, or if you have any historical knowledge about it. But the reason I'm here today is because we seem to have some conflict or understanding what the council and mayor want from us, and maybe there's some confusion about what we want from the mayor and council. So just a short little background for those of you who may or may not know. So in March 1986, actually, I believe in 1963 there was a lease. But
It was.
I wasn't even born then, and no one seems to know where it is. So in March of
We have it.
'86, you must have it somewhere.
Yes.
We have a lease with you guys, with the borough of Tenafly, for the pool club, 165 Grove Street. And in November 28, 2000, we have a resolution by the mayor and council, who, I'm sorry to say, a lot of these council people are no longer with us. But in any event,
They were not born then.
the mayor, thanks. The mayor and council made a resolution extending the original lease, which expired September 30th, 2010, to September 30th, 2025. This is your resolution,
Well,
okay?
Well, let's
Let
not
me
get into an
finish.
argument about
Let me
what it
just
says.
finish. The next
because-
resolution regarding the
You say
Tenant Kill
whatever you
Pool
want.
Club was signed in April of 2008. In April of 2008, the current mayor signed a amendment to the lease, and mind you, there are a lot of amendments to this lease.
You were born then?
In April of 2008, the current mayor signed an amendment that provided that we would make our facilities available free of charge to the Tenafly Rec summer camp for 2 days a week, limiting the group to 25 kids and 2 days a week. That was also signed, all good, 2008. And I believe that was also the same amendment that was done with the Tenafly pool at the time. That way Reckies could have 2 days a week at Tenafly, 2 days a week at Tennekill. That way they had 4 days a week of summer pool time. Unfortunately, as you may or may not know, in 2015, the Tenafly Pool Club went bankrupt. Mayor Rustin reached out to us and said, this is a terrible situation, what can you guys do for us? We said, talk to us, what do you want us to do? He asked us to open our doors to all the Tenafly members, not to request a bond, which is typical of any membership. We do request a refundable bond. We opened our doors to them. Many members came, many members didn't come. A lot of them, I think, were very disillusioned with the pool club because they left, they lost their bond, they lost their summer plan, so to speak. We did open our doors, we did take in several of their members, and in addition, the mayor came to us and said, we're in a bad situation because we have a Reckies day camp that needs a pool 4 days a week. So we stepped up, and we, in your time of need, said, no problem, we will take you guys 4 days a week. We did not charge you for it. We understood it was like a really bad situation all the way around. We appreciated the mayor putting in a good word for us to express any Tenafly members, hey, go to Tennekill, they're there for you. In that same time frame in 2006, the mayor started a conversation with us, I'm assuming with whoever was a council person at the time. Hey, what can we do for you? What can we do to get together as a I don't know what how do we partner with you? I think were the words.
When was that?
June of
2016.
2016. And I think the term were, how do we partner with you?
I'm sorry?
Next time you learn, to start the conversation.
Well, no conversation was started without the okay of the council.
Yeah, so we said, oh, okay, he's coming to us, he wants to partner with us, all right. We came to the table, we had several meetings, there's several, this is a correspondence to the mayor in 2016, explaining to him, yes, we'd like to partner with you. We pride ourselves on being a community pool, even though we are a private 501c7 corporation. That said, we do many things for the borough. We take the seniors for discounted rates and free memberships. We handle the Recce summer camp. The police department has their parties there. The Mom Elementary School has their parties there. Some of the other, McKay as well. We have our facilities available to the Korean Community Center.
And DARE.
Oh, and the police DARE program. We do a lot of parties. We have the Boy Scouts come, etc. We do all these things. We're still a private pool. When the mayor asked us, what can we do? We asked him back in 2016, hey, if you want to help us out, some of the things we need, besides our salaries to our managers and lifeguards and front office people, the real estate taxes, which was negotiated, I guess, in the original lease, is what our rent is, basically. So we said to the mayor, hey, let's reduce knock our rent down, because that is our biggest budget item. We'd rather put that into the pool and renovate. The club's been around since 1960. The landlord is the borough. The borough has not put anything into that club. Those buildings are from 1960. We constantly are replacing roofs. We are replacing bathrooms. We are replacing concrete. The playgrounds really need to be replaced. In any event, we put all this into a letter. We said, hey, here's the things you can help us out with. What can you do? Some of the other things are upgrading, renovations, assisting with repairs, and again, a reduction of the rent. Back and forth, we didn't really hear anything again until 2017. So we decided, without too much ado, we had no other choice. The town wasn't working with us. We had to file a real estate tax appeal. We didn't want to be adversarial. We didn't have a choice. So we were successful in our real estate tax appeal because we are given to understand that we didn't get any pushback from the mayor or council. So in return for that, and we did appreciate that, we allowed Recce's to come again for 4 days a week. And we kind of realized if we had litigated this, what it would cost us or our members, and honestly, we have a fiduciary duty to our members to spend their membership fees wisely. So we agreed, the mayor and council said, we're not gonna push back, we'll take the real estate reduction, and in return, we did allow Recce's to come for 4 days a week. So fast forward, now we're at 2018, we have Recce's again. I guess they showed up. I had a meeting in June with Jewel Thompson, I believe, and Jamie, who's head of the rec department. We said, we're fine, yes, we can honor you guys, you can come for 4 days a week, but we gotta charge you our commercial rates, what we charge other camps to come, because we have to survive. We're a private company, we're not getting funding from anyone else. So I gave them the invoice, they had the invoice in June. I never heard anything back from anybody, from the council, the mayor, Jewel, Jamie, nothing. The summer goes by, we honored your Recce's day camp, we let them come, the kids had a ball, everyone had a great time. Still no payment. August, I sent another, or the board sent another notice, hey guys, remember that bill that never got paid, you know what's going on. Still never heard anything back. September 21st, we get a letter from the Bill McClure telling us that, oh, by the way, this guy, by the way, we think that your lease actually expired on September 30th, 2010. And by the way, you've been on a month-to-month.
If you're paraphrasing me, don't say we think.
Okay. He wrote,
Look,
I
your
serve
lease
as a
did
municipal
expire.
attorney, the Borough of Tenafly. The Tennekill Swim Club March 25th, 1986 lease covering the premises expired on September 30th, 2010. That is absolutely correct. However, he does not reference the amendment in 2000, which extended our lease until
Which
2025.
you never signed.
Or return
In
to
any
the borough.
event, he says
So it's
here
not valid.
that he was instructed by the mayor and council to inform us that our month-to-month occupancy is terminated effective 11:59 p.m. on December 31st.
Did you ever
So-
sign that amendment letter, send it to the borough?
I'm gonna answer that in just a question, let me finish.
Okay.
I will go back and answer that question for you.
This,
I'm
first of all, this has to be enclosed, and we are supposed to be in a public hearing right now.
Right, so may I finish?
This doesn't have
May I
to
finish? Let me
be closed.
finish, let me just finish.
Oh,
So in response to this nice letter that we got,
normally keep our public comment to 3 minutes.
Yes.
I've given you a little latitude, but we have to go into a public hearing.
I'm
This
done
is
it.
not a time.
Can I
to
take
plead-
their 3 minutes, or do I give all my documents out?
This is not a time to have a public discussion on this.
I don't want a public discussion, I'm just trying to give them the background. I'm
Okay.
here today because I need to tell you, or at least find out from you as a council and mayor, our position, we're happy to give you back your keys, as I said, to the pool
You are
club.
happy to do so?
We're not happy,
Max,
but we
Max.
don't want an adversarial position. Our position has always been, we're part of the community, we wanted to work with the community. Don't know where this came from, felt like we were heading in a whole different direction.
Diana, can I
Let me
propose we
just-
do this in a meeting that's a special meeting,
Yeah.
that we can sit and work
Right,
with
but
you
I just
as
wanna
well?
get on the table here tonight.
you've got
The
it
reason
on-
we're here is because we'd like to know what the intent of the mayor and council is regarding the pool club. We, second of all, wanna know if you're gonna pay the $20,000 invoice or
No.
not. And because we feel like we can't move forward with you if you are telling us you're gonna terminate our lease, which we don't believe you have legitimacy to do. And we need to know what your deal is with the
So
$20,000.
Thank you.
procedurally, we're not supposed to.
You don't have to answer me, I'm just
Thank you.
saying that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would tell you, from my perspective, since I was quoted on numerous occasions, that this was not an accurate description of a lot of
Mayor,
things that
let's
went
not
on.
get into the details.
So-
I propose a
Well,
special meeting.
Hold on, you don't have the floor yet, okay? Just
Well,
wait a second.
to
I don't-
comment on-
I don't intend to have a dialogue with a member of the public during public comment, all right?
Okay.
She went on and on. Our last correspondence, which actually addressed to the membership, not the board, the membership, which was not distributed to the membership, which I believe is your responsibility as a board, made it clear that it is not our intent to close the pool, okay?
So what is the September 21st letter? It
Mayor,
specifically says
Well,
you're taking our lease.
Well, that's right, because
Mayor, you can't speak on behalf of all of us right now, and
I'm
this
just
isn't the right
I'm
procedure to
just
do it.
quoting
But
the
no, you
letter
should
that
not be
all of
making any
us.
comments any which way. We would like to hear what you have to say in full. Unfortunately, procedurally, we're not allowed to do it at that. this
Well, I
moment.
know you would like to chair the meeting, but you're
It's not that I
I'll
wanna
chair it.
chair it, it's that you're
I'll chair it.
improperly responding
Well-
on behalf of us when we haven't even
Yeah.
made
All right,
decisions
so
on behalf of us.
we're not going to discuss this any
All right.
further now.
Absolutely.
Any other comments on anything other than the pool?
I understand. Now's not the time.
Okay, we're going to go to the public hearing now.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
The only thing you can
Okay, so-
we disagree with what your conclusion is.
So right now, we have representatives for 18-17 and 18-20. Your architect is here. Okay, so let's take those first out of order. We'll go with the bank building first.
First, it has to be read into the record
Right.
when it was introduced and the title of the ordinances.
Okay.
Before that's presented.
Anne Marie, please read 18-17.
The following ordinance published herewith the first read by title only on September 13, 2018, and published on the bulletin board of the lobby of the municipal center. Ordinance 18-17 through 18-20 all have the same title, which is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the Borough of Tenafly adopted on February 9, 2016, and to amend and supplement the land development regulations of the Borough of Tenafly to designate certain properties within the Borough Historic as set forth in the Historic Preservation Plan of the Master Plan of the Borough of Tenafly, and amending Chapter 35 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Land Development Regulations, but will have its own public comment and will be voted on individually. 18-17 is for the historic designation of the bank building. 18-18 is for the historic designation of the Bauer Auto Building. 18-19 is for the historic designation of the Savin Building, and 18-20 is for the historic designation of the theater building.
Okay, so we're going to open the floor now for public comment. May I ask, the architect that is going to speak is Is he going to speak individually on each of the buildings separately, or does he have a presentation that basically is for both of them?
Either way, again,
Who do you represent?
I'm being hired by both of these entities.
Which, both?
Well, the bank building?
The bank building
And
and
the
the
theater.
theater building.
Okay.
This, if we can maybe proceed with
You
me
need to-
introducing myself. We have a court reporter here this evening. We're taking this down
First,
because.
introduce yourself.
My name is John Shapezi, this is Danielle Cardone, we're two attorneys here this evening representing the bank, one railroad. Also here this evening is,
I'm Gary Hall, Carter and English, representing Bowtie Theaters, owner, operator of the movie theater.
So the bank owns One West Railroad.
correct.
Bowtie owns the theater
Right,
building.
through an entity, special purpose entity, but I use Bowtie for ease of reference.
One question I wanted to go into before we go in with our presentation. I did not hear anybody set forth that the municipality complied with NJSA 40:55D-62.1. Because if you didn't do that,
Would you explain to the masses what that?
that means that you had to give notice because you're changing the zone, and you had to give notice to the property owners within 200 feet.
No.
Not
Not
for
for
historic,
historic.
not for historic designation.
We don't find anything that says that. Now, if you want to litigate that point, which makes no sense, you can correct that just by giving the notice to everybody within 200 feet, and that doesn't have to be an issue to be litigated. If you don't want to, it'd be kind of foolish and a waste of the town's money to litigate that point. So I'm raising that now. We have to raise it. If we don't raise it, we waive it. And I'm telling you, we will be pursuing that issue.
Say the statute for me again? Say the statute section.
NJSA 40:55D-62.
It's a zoning change, it's not,
This is not a
historic
zoning
preservation is not,
A zoning,
It's
it's
not
not a
a
zoning
zoning.
change. Okay, doesn't matter. We
But
can.
the ordinance
is
reads, an
amending your
ordinance to
zoning
amend
map.
your zoning
The
map.
clerk just
Now,
read it.
if that's not a zoning change, I don't know what is.
it's not a zoning change, for, you know,
To
historic
amend the zoning map is a zoning change. But if you want to litigate that, that's fine, but I think it's a waste to waste the township's hard-earned money. You could use it for the swimming pool, and not to have them, not to have this issue as one of the issues we're going to.
Would that be an
Comes
issue
under a
that
different,
you are
uh,
interested
different-
in basically objecting to?
No, we're raising that issue because we're going to pursue that, but you can correct it tonight very simply, just by giving the notice to
Well,
everyone within
What
200
that would
feet.
mean would be to.
Carry it for your
carry
next
it, so-
meeting.
So you'd have to come
and-
back.
We don't mind coming back. We just want to have this procedurally
It's not a
done.
zoning change.
Okay.
Well, one.
Is that the only objection?
Max,
No, no, we don't.
Lauren, Max, hold on a second. We have a borough attorney here,
We do.
and we have an administrator who is also a clerk. What saith you to?
The fact that that even though it says we're amending the zoning map, it still doesn't make it a zoning change. Because changing a number on a zoning map would be an amendment to the zoning map. That doesn't make it a zoning change. Just because it's amendment to the zoning map does not make it a zoning change. And historic designation comes under a different statutory scheme. It's not a zoning change.
And it actually it should fall under 40-55D, which is historic preservation, and not under zoning, it shouldn't.
Well, 4055D
It's
is part of the
40-55D,
land development.
The point
but
that
it's
we're
not zoning,
raising
it's.
is,
It's a land
you're
use
going
laws.
to be wasting money on litigating something that you can cure just with a publication and have this hearing in 2 weeks.
All right.
And mail
We did
notice.
publish.
And mail notes.
Lisette, what do you think?
We did the full publication of each ordinance. And my understanding of municipal land use law is the zone itself, it doesn't change. If we have a pending zoning ordinance coming in a few weeks, that requires the mailing, both regular mail and certified mail. With this type of change, since we're amending the land development regulations, the ordinances were published in full, the planning board was notified, the adjoining municipalities were notified, and the county planning board were notified.
But the
And that's all in
people-
compliance with
But
municipal
everyone
land use
within
law.
200 feet were not notified. So anyone could come in and attack this ordinance who was within 200 feet that you did not mail the notice to.
All right, so,
All right.
Bill, let me ask you a question. Bill, let me ask you a question.
All right.
Okay, do you deem it prudent to move forward with this tonight on the basis of what he heard, even if he's wrong, if he's gonna litigate, it's gonna cost us money, even if he's wrong. And I'm not saying he's wrong, I'm not saying he's right, I'm not an attorney, we got enough attorneys here. I'd just like to see something that all the
Just play
attorneys
one on
agree on.
TV. You
I'd
just
like to
play
see,
on
I'd
TV.
like to see something that all the attorneys agree on.
It's up to the
Nothing.
council, to answer that question, it's up to the council, but.
What is your
I wanna,
advice?
I
You're
wanna
our
read the
attorney.
statute, but I can't seem to load it up.
Well, I don't think you're looking at the right statute.
And I say 40-55D.
If you want to avoid the expense of what I think would be,
Frivolous laws, in your mind.
because I know what that requirements are for
NJS.
designating
Like
historic.
62, let's see.
Notwithstanding that we're saying that we're amending the zoning map. It's up to you guys. I mean, I don't care if it goes, if you put it off, doesn't matter to me.
Why would you, I mean, is
Jeff,
there-
what do you think?
Zoning is
Those
use.
requirements.
Jeff?
Zoning is use,
Well,
we're not doing
I'd
use.
like to hear what other things are gonna come up right now so that we can sit here
We have a whole-
and cure it all.
We have a whole litany of items.
I figured you do.
Which we.
Why is that not surprising?
I know, but the only problem you have is I'm not going to do it twice.
Well, we're
I
not
don't
going,
mind-
here's what we're not gonna do.
Go ahead.
We're not going to adjourn a meeting and then have you say, here's another thing that you need to adjourn it for. We're not gonna play that game.
No adjournments, that's why I raised.
Because I know how many adjournments there were with the
That's
HPC.
right.
I know how many times this has gone on and on and on and on, and that has
Right.
been the game played.
No.
Right.
So I need an assurance, since we have a record,
You have the assurance.
that,
Zoning change is a use of the land.
so
This is
that
not
would be the
use.
only
Historic
major
not
district
just
is
use.
not
concern.
Not just use.
Alright.
Not just use.
Okay.
That's,
This
I'm
is
not
if I may
gonna
say-
stop
That's not
Excuse me.
correct.
sure,
Right,
your
so that
turn.
would be, Mayor, that would be my only concern is I do not want this to drag on. If we do pick one more date, that is final.
And we have a
Well, I-
stipulation.
agree with Jeff.
We have a
think that's a
stipulation.
legitimate concern, and I don't think hear you arguing with us.
I'm not, I'm
So,
saying that's fine.
and
And the date
I'm
is.
a lot less patient than the guys that run the HBC. They figure they get all the time in
This
the
is
world.
not having
But
change.
no, you're a lot more patient.
So,
So we
what-
stipulate, we have a stipulation from you that there will be no other
Well,
issues
you know, he's not forcing
Make
us
an
to
argument.
adjourn now.
Wait,
He's just
no.
simply giving us a sense that he has an issue, and we'd like to hear all of the issues you have at this
Wait,
point.
I'd like to go back to this first issue that notice isn't given. Give me your argument why you think that this has to be a zoning change. I would like to hear the basis.
Read your ordinance.
I'm reading the statute.
Read your ordinance.
I'm reading it.
Read, what's the title of your ordinance?
It is actually 62 is
That's the statute.
power to zone.
Excuse me, that's the statute. I said,
That's
read
statute.
your ordinance.
Our
Read your
ordinance.
ordinance.
The
For-
title,
for
he's talking about
notice?
the title of the
The
ordinance.
title is an ordinance to amend the zoning map. Now, if you're amending the zoning map, you fall under the provisions of NJSA 4055D-61.2.
If you fall
were-
within the definitions and the purpose of this part. It doesn't mean that the title is not part
So
of
the
the
title doesn't mean anything. Well,
You're an
as
attorney,
all
you
the
know that.
years I've been practicing land use law,
Let's
I
listen
don't
to
think that
every,
your
title
call-
and the notice is important.
Let's listen to everything they have,
62.1.
They want basically
then decide.
Technically, the title is, short title is municipal land use law. That's the title in the statute, but go ahead.
No, he's talking about the title of the
your
ordinance.
not
Or
the
the ordinance,
statute.
okay. Alright, so I don't think that your call, whatever,
How about we
agrees to
listen to
that.
everything all at once?
Gary Hall
and
for
then
the,
decide?
Yeah.
the theater.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Mr. Shapezi. I mean, I just,
I thought you would.
well,
Okay, so,
frankly, I was potentially considering not even bringing it up so that if you adopted it, you could come back here again in 6 months with a do-over. But Mr. Shapezi's nicely telling you now, and he said he might be deemed to waive it. Of course, you could argue that in court, and your lawyer could argue it in court. I agree it's a debatable issue, but forget about the title of your ordinance. Section 1 says the zoning map is hereby amended. Section 2, historic sites overlay district.
It's on the-
And if you look at 62.1, it says changing a use classification.
Bill, you hearing
It's
this?
not a
You're
use
adding an
classification.
overlay
It's
to your
not a
zone.
use classification.
And historic preservation is authorized under the land use law.
do
Folks,
you
not a
have any
separate-
other issues that
Yes,
if this is
Well, we
concerned?
oppose the thing altogether. this is a
This is a
procedural issue.
procedural issue, so you don't have to waste money litigating.
We
There are
understand that.
many other issues.
Do you have anything else that would basically postpone our hearing if we do that?
None that we know of, right?
None of that, and you stipulate that. The same on the other side?
I'm not aware of any of
So
it.
you would be
I'm not
prepared-
stipulating to anything.
They're prepared.
We're saying,
Go
I'm ready to
forward.
proceed.
I mean,
Yeah,
look,
we're saying,
look, the sense I have, members of the council, is no matter how many hoops we jump through, if we approve this ordinance, they're gonna take us to court.
Oh, okay, but the only reason they're here then is only for that procedural change?
No,
Then
no, no.
everything's
No,
good?
no, they-
No, wait, that's-
no, no.
wait,
No.
wait. Oh, so there's other reasons?
No,
Oh, so I'd like to hear it.
Tony,
I'd like to hear it.
Tony,
What, Peter?
they're prepared to go forward with the hearing.
What?
All right, they're prepared to have us go forward with the hearing, they'll do this talk, they'll tell us why they don't want the designation. We'll vote on it,
Yeah.
and if we approve the designation, they're gonna take us to court. It's obvious,
Now, we can
okay?
amend the title of our ordinance, and we can amend the ordinance, by the way,
What they're saying to us
with, and
is,
avoid
You're
this
gonna take us to
procedural
court
issue.
anyway, Peter, based upon, I mean,
Yeah,
we're
but
not
we're
sitting
gonna-
here because
This is a
we're
simple
good-looking
what
people.
we're doing is we're taking one issue
Right.
off the
And so be
table.
it.
Now, how
One
many
of the
more
many.
issues there are,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I'm asking, Peter.
Well, I understand that. I
So
understand
let's
that, but
proceed.
That's what I'm
Let's
asking. How many other
proceed.
issues are there?
Do you wanna do it
we,
first?
what we can do, and correct me if you feel this to be poor strategy,
not a roadblock.
since you're advising us at no charge,
Yes.
we
That's
can
as
go
much as
ahead with
worth
this
it.
hearing and then table the vote.
Or we can amend it
True.
Oh,
appropriately.
no, the problem you have with that won't work. Because if
It
you
won't
have
work.
the hearing, anyone else within 200 feet can raise this issue. And I'm sure there'll be somebody else within 200 feet that will raise the
Well,
issue that they didn't get noticed.
We've
We
been,
put
but
public notice
Except
out.
that what they could do is, we could table the vote, and then if it's determined that we should have done that, we just we'll move
Why
on
don't
it.
you do
Or
it the
just
right
redo
way
it.
and stop being stubborn? I mean, in plain English,
So
do
we
it
have
the
to
right
be-
way, correct.
well, listen,
Save us-
look,
save us
Our
time.
notices
this is
are
one of those
posted on
rare
our
occasions
website.
where we
This is
almost
not a
have,
debate.
where we almost have perfect attendance.
Family.
Okay, if the 6 of us agree that we're going to go out and give
Not changing
notice,
classification.
and come back on November the 19th, and make our decision on November the 19th, come heck or high water.
I say they're here tonight, let's hear the rest of it.
Well,
And
just
then
sort
we
of
can hold the vote until November 19th, but everyone's here
Hear
tonight.
everything.
You have the name of
Once.
that member that made that statement?
Peter, we have our own borough attorney. We have a lot of faith and trust in what he says and his opinion.
Yeah, but what's going to happen, Tony, is we'll have to go to court. Win or lose, it's gonna cost us money. Do you want to avoid going to court over this particular issue? It's your decision, not mine. There's 5 of you. It can't be a tie vote.
But logistically,
6.
you know,
If you wanna
it
go
raised
to,
the procedural
we're gonna end up in court anyway, unless we deny the designation. And
So you might as, then, I think what you're saying is, we might as well eliminate one of the issues if we're gonna end up in court anyway, they're still going to,
well, I'm saying the same thing he's saying. I'm not
Right.
necessarily agreeing with him because you're
Right.
the attorney, but why take the chance?
Well,
Why
you're being practical.
practical and efficient? I don't want to spend more money on this borough money. And for the people that sit at this table and count dollars, I would
Okay.
think that regardless
So-
of whether you agree with him or not, let's avoid that issue.
So, okay, we have a stipulation from both attorneys.
I didn't
They're not gonna
stipulate
do it.
anything.
Okay, he has stipulated, Mr. Pizzoli, or what?
She's not gonna do it.
Shapezi stipulated that he would basically have no other issues procedural to delay the discussion once that notification is done. Do you have any other procedural issues to delay just yes or
I'm
no?
not raising any issues tonight,
Okay.
procedurally.
Jeff,
Okay.
Not tonight, but how about?
Jeff.
This is
My God.
important,
Ha-
actually.
What?
Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
But I will
He's
say,
looking for
I
that.
will say, Mr. Shapezi,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
as of now, we have been delayed in bad faith.
By
But again
who?
and again, we
Wait,
have,
wait,
we
wait.
have
I have to
things-
say
I'm gonna say this, you're wrong.
The HPC
That is
delayed it, we
100%
didn't.
wrong. The HPC was the one that delayed it, never gave proper notice, the planning board never gave the proper notice. All of those arguments are there. This argument tonight, I will not raise this argument again. If you delay this and put it on for the meeting and give the appropriate notice.
Now, we
If
could
you
have
don't,
learned this 6
if
months
you
ago.
wanna, can somebody else speak, please?
We have been sitting and
Okay,
waiting for.
I guess nobody else can. This
Well-
is your meeting, we might as well leave.
We have
Yeah.
had many times where we have waited for you and your co-counsel to come and make these arguments. Procedurally, if you know this, we could have known this 6 months ago.
No, one ever even told, we had to monitor your agendas to even find out about this.
Nobody even told us.
Nobody told us. They found the
Never
notice
told
in
us
the
when this was
newspaper.
on.
We thought you
We
were
had
gonna
to
do it
monitor
in June, we were
your
all
agenda,
ready.
and it's not on your agenda
Nobody has
until the
told us.
night before the meeting.
Alright,
Your
so-
agenda, planning board
That's not
meeting,
accurate.
or the
Mr.
historic
Shapizi,
preservation.
as we
Yes.
understand,
That's not
basically, you were looking for a 2 weeks delay while this is, and then we're gonna be litigating your issues in public at the next public meeting. That's what you're trying.
You have my assurance. You
Yes,
come
no.
back, you can speak.
Yeah.
No, no,
All right.
I just,
And
since we have a record going, I just want to make sure that we're clear. You said that it was the HPC that kept delaying. That was what you just said.
HPC would not give us the information, would not adjourn, excuse me, let me, sir, you asked the question.
I asked you a specific
And I'm
question,
answering
yes
the
or no
question.
question.
I'm answering it the
Your-
right way, not the way you wanted it answered. All right,
The
you are
question
wrong.
was-
You are wrong. Very simple.
Hold
I am
on,
not
hold on.
wrong.
Why don't
you
let each other
I'm still
answer
gonna
that
try
question.
and share this. Ask the question, then listen to his answer. Ask the question.
So the question was, did you say that HPC was the one who delayed the hearings? Because that's what I heard. That's a yes/no question.
The answer is, I can't possibly answer that or a yes or no.
Well, Jeff, let him answer
We
the
could
question.
we could read back.
Jeff, you asked the question, let him answer it,
Okay.
and he wants
Well,
to answer it in
He
his
said
own
he couldn't
fashion.
possibly.
Answer it the way you asked that
Let
question.
him
It's a
answer the
yes or
question.
no.
Go ahead, sir, please. You have the
Yeah.
floor.
I'll give you the floor.
No, the chairman gave me the floor.
The chairman, absolutely.
Okay, so you
Well,
can't
the
give
one
the
that
chairman
asked
the
the
floor.
question.
Well, actually, no, sir, actually, he can give you the floor, because we are the mayor and council, so maybe you just better calm your tone, okay?
All right.
Please.
Calm your tone a little
Please.
bit.
I'll listen to you, you'll listen to me. Let's go.
What we're trying to do is to get a fair hearing somewhere. Planning board didn't give it to us. We went to the planning board, they said, we don't have to hear anything on this. We're limited to what we're hearing. We're limited to deciding whether this fits into the zone plan,
Master plan.
the master plan, I'm sorry. The planning board further said we'd have a full hearing here. The Historic Preservation Board didn't have a full hearing. They didn't have a full meeting. We requested an adjournment twice, and for reasons unknown, she had to ram it through. There was no purpose for it. She could have granted the adjournment and let this matter go forward while we were getting our witnesses lined up. But for some, this is now on an urgent agenda for some political reason, whether it's political with a capital P or political internal.
All right.
Okay?
That's
So,
completely miscarried.
the record of the HPC, because I've read their minutes,
Right.
show that you guys asked for several adjournments and they were granted. They were granted for bringing witnesses, that is true. So, make sure you read the minutes.
Once. No, excuse me.
Make sure you
You
read the
don't-
minutes.
Hold on.
Well, we're going from
Let's have
0 to
one-
1, now
I'll
we're
try
going to
and
go from 1 to
maintain
2.
one
You
person's-
have someone here who has been representing, it was several times. Go
What?
check the minutes.
What are you saying? Someone here that was representing, go check the minutes. I don't understand what that means.
Representing the bank at HPC hearings.
Requesting an adjournment.
And those
Danielle was
adjournments
there
were,
requesting the
and
adjournment, and they were denied.
they were not
That was
denied.
planning.
I came to the planning board, I was asked
I'm
to
talking
come
about
back.
HPC and they were not denied.
Adjournment.
That's in the minutes, period.
I-
So, please do not misrepresent what one of our town boards has
Every time
done.
there was a work session,
I'm gonna
it
take
was
the
on
floor
minutes.
for a second. All right, first of
Yes,
all,
Mr.
These 2 or 3.
I can only tell you about the planning board, because I sit on it.
I know you do.
Yes.
You were treated properly there.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, it was not our purview to have a public hearing. Our purview was only to recommend to the mayor and council, perhaps the HBC too, that what they proposed was in compliance with the master plan. That's what we did. The hearing, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what level hearing you're entitled to or should have had at HBC. I know you're entitled to have a hearing here tonight. If you would like an adjournment, you can ask for one. Or we can suggest an adjournment to decide whether or not we want to provide notice. I believe, my recommendation to the council, and it's the council's decision, is that we have an adjournment on this so that we can provide notice to eliminate one of the potential problems with this case.
I would like to just say one more thing.
Sure.
This council, Ms. Carlton, am I saying that right?
No.
Cardone, excuse me, has been before our council on at least 2, possibly more occasions, asking for postponements at this council. And I know Mr. Hall is coming in for the first time tonight, but we have been dealing with this for a long time.
Okay.
Can I be heard?
Yes.
Since my name was mentioned.
All right, you
Thank
have the floor, sir.
First of all, it started out as a package deal. I was here with Mr. Hewitt in July of last year in this room. We had our hearing, we were done. Now we're a year and a half down the road and we're here. We didn't do anything else in between. We got a letter from the head of HPC in April, I think, when she referred it to the council. That time it was 5 sites, now it's 4, I'm not sure why, but we thought, her letter said you'll probably do something in June. Now, what happened between June and now, I don't know, but I know I'm not responsible for that, and I know I'm not aware of any reason why they're responsible. And more importantly, I don't know why it matters. The issue is whether you want to adopt these ordinances.
Well,
So you sort of got up on the sidetrack, I think.
I would agree that the issue at this particular point about whose fault it is that it's taken so long is a moot point. All right, we're all here tonight. You've agreed to give us an adjournment if we so want that adjournment. And the purpose being solely to just notice the people to take that argument off the table.
It's not for that. They want an adjournment so they can align their witnesses, bring more
We're
people.
ready to go.
Oh, ready
Well,
to go.
First of all,
You have that?
Then let's hear it.
Max, I think it's been made clear to us that regardless of who speaks, what is said, if their properties are designated, they're gonna take us to court.
I
So,
doubt it.
well, all right, you can doubt it if you can doubt it if you like. In the meantime, we have, this has been on our desk
Yeah.
for 2 years, starting with the HPC, and I'm not saying it's the HPC's fault or the planning board's fault or it's our fault. We've been kicking this around, as we have a tendency to do, for 2 years. So, I believe what's
Disagree with
prudent
that
here and efficient
description.
is to tell the parties involved that are here tonight that we intend to proceed without any hesitation, without any further delay, on November the 19th. And prior to that meeting, we will most likely notice the people within 200 feet. If we choose not to, that'll be more ammunition in your gun.
Fine, can we vote on this? Should we vote on?
Yeah,
what we
let's
voted?
I'll call the question.
Call the question.
So the question is, yes says we're going to adjourn this and give notice, and no is we're gonna proceed tonight.
Can I just ask a question on this?
Yeah, well,
So let's say we grant it.
right.
Down the road, because clearly this is gonna end up in court in some fashion.
No,
That's
no,
a no-brainer. The judge say, well, procedurally, you guys didn't follow protocol, and so how does that come back negative-wise to us?
We're
then?
not sure we have
no,
it
no,
yet.
no.
We
I'm
don't know if
asking,
we have
look,
it yet, Tony.
I
Don't make
know-
that
Bill,
assumption.
I'm not making that assumption,
Bill?
but if we
All
go
right.
to,
I'll ask the attorney.
No, no, my suggestion, if you're going to call the question, is simply to say that we're going to, table this until, or carry this until the next meeting.
Okay.
Not to require
Right, then
notice, or not to say as a condition of it, I just simply say, we'll take it under advisement, but we're going to.
Well, being that we don't meet again until November the 19th, I would suggest that in closed session, we discuss whether we're gonna send a notice out.
Did we put a notice in the New Jersey
No, I
Register?
wouldn't do that. I think,
When are you gonna decide that? We don't meet again until November the 19th.
well, I don't think that, that this body needs to authorize sending out the notice. It can be done by the clerk.
But the point of the matter is, if we're not gonna send out notice, why don't we just have the hearing now?
Well, legally, let's find out if we need to send that notice.
Well, I think that maybe in consultation with our planning board attorney, and I'll read a few things, but I disagree that the notice has to be
All right,
given,
so
but-
forget the notice part of that decision. Do you want to adjourn this till November the 19th, yes or no?
Table.
Max?
I'm okay with adjourning it
So that's a yes.
with a stipulation that was made that we can proceed then on, without any additional.
Well, I made that.
No, they're not gonna do that.
I would like to add a stipulation.
That wouldn't be fair to
I
us
would like
anyway.
to say by November 19th, if there's any known procedural issues now, they are to be raised to our council before that date,
They
from
don't-
either party. They can do that
Well,
now, any known,
They can
any
do
known.
that now, or
What
they
if we
can.
think up another one next week?
Well,
I mean, I don't think you
Then I
can
get
make
to-
that. You can adjourn
First of
at
all,
your
first of all,
discretion. You
first-
don't need our permission.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
First of all, if they come up with a procedural issue on November the 19th, it's our prerogative to go forward anyway. It's our prerogative to go forward now, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But they've already said that in addition to any possible other things, they're going to bring that up in court. So right now, I'm asking you, do you want to table this to the 19th? Did you want to speak?
Yes.
I would deem it waived.
These are the parliamentary options that are available. It was read into the record to solicit public comment. There is no motion to adopt. So parliamentary procedure is there needs to be a motion
Hold
to
on,
lay,
listen, I think it would be helpful if
to
everybody
lay
else.
on the table. Okay? And by laying on the table on November 19th, if you want to discuss, you have to have a motion to remove from the table. And at that time is when you decide, we'll hear it that night, we'll hear it the next meeting, or we'll wait till the new council, whatever the question may be. But it is just laying on the table, there are no stipulations, just like, we're not doing this now, and we'll take it up at a later date. And then when there's a motion to lay on the table, there's a second, there's a roll call.
Meaning,
So I'll entertain the motion.
wait. So meaning after, to remove it from the table, someone can introduce a second reading.
To remove it from the table, to take it off the table just to discuss, there has to be a motion to remove from the table. Based on what the consensus is of the governing
After
body,
that.
if you want to move forward with adopting it, then you have to make a motion to adopt.
So it's two separate motions.
Right, yes, that's
So
right.
right now, I'm asking for a motion to table this till November the 19th,
So
at which
moved.
point you have the option of taking it off the table or leaving it on the table.
So
A
moved.
motion, please?
So moved.
A second? We're never gonna get out of here unless we get a second. You can vote no if you care to.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
No.
Councilmember Bosch?
No.
Councilmember Dayton?
No.
Councilmember Grossman?
No.
Councilmember Park?
So we'll
So the-
proceed now.
The motion to table is denied.
Yeah.
Okay, public comment on these particular ordinances.
Yes. My name is John Shapizi. We have a court reporter here this evening, and I just wanted to point out to the board that there's procedural deficiencies in the method in which you've proceeded with this ordinance. We've mentioned it to you earlier, and I just want the record clear. You're in violation of NJSA 40:55D-62.1. You have failed to give notices required under that statute, and the adoption of this ordinance by the governing body, if you elect to adopt it, would be deficient. So that's my first statement.
Thank you for your consideration.
My second statement is, we just wanted to address what has happened historically on this ordinance before the Historic Preservation Commission and before the planning board. You have an ordinance that's a zoning ordinance, and you send it to the planning board for a hearing and input. The planning board gets a report from the borough planner, Joe Burgess's office, and doesn't present it to the objector, but hands it to me the night of the planning board meeting. Mayor, if you recall, we never saw it before that night. That's another procedural deficiency. By failing to have the ordinance report given to the public, given to my office, given to Mr. Hall's office, or anyone else, is a deficiency in the method in which this was done. So that's number two. Number three, addressing the ordinance itself. The ordinance is supposedly to preserve certain historic sites. You don't have one scintilla of testimony before you that there is anything historic on the bank building or on the theater building. I'm not gonna address the theater, Mr. Hall will address that. The bank building, we have a witness here this evening, will testify that there's nothing historic about that building as defined in the statute. The only thing you have is an old building that somebody decided we want to lump in to the historic district in Tenafly. And there is nothing there that is historic. The building itself has been modified. You, in your rush to pass an ordinance, you've adopted to it, the subject property is 1 West Clinton Avenue. You forgot the fact that there are 2 buildings there. Building number 1 was built in the 1920s. Building number 2 was built in the 1960s. One of them, your historic commission expert, Ms. Brown, said the one is historic, the other one isn't. But in your one ordinance, you're designating both. Another mistake in what you're doing. Continuing with what we have an objection, there's no distinctive characteristics on this bank building except for the fact that it's an old limestone bank building in one section and a newer bank building in another section. The historic facts that you say took place in that area with the British Army and the Hessian troops marching through there applies to every building in downtown Tenafly, not just these 2 buildings. That is not a reason to designate these properties as historic buildings. What you want to do is, if you want to put a plaque up, you want to point out that these buildings have some historic significance, do it. But the way you're doing it this way, you're just bringing yourselves litigation, you're bringing the whole township litigation, you're causing the property owners' property values to go down, and you're ending up with something that's going to show any commercial property owner, don't go to Tenafly. They're not friendly to commercial property owners. The only thing they care about is placating the Historic Preservation Commission. They don't care that they've taken and affected your value. I can assure you, the day if this ordinance is passed, besides the litigation that would be filed in the Superior Court, a tax appeal will be filed immediately thereafter for the diminution in value to this property, and Mr. Hall will say whether he's going to do the same thing. And we will be successful, because you can't preclude someone in this country from using their property because somebody decided we should designate this building as historic when the facts aren't there. There's not one unique feature about this building. The only unique feature was a statement by a historian that certain events took place in downtown Tenafly. Didn't take place in this building, it took place supposedly downtown Tenafly. There's no difference between our building and any other building. At this point, I'd like to call my first witness. Can we have the witness sworn, please?
Bill?
My name is
Bill.
Mark.
We don't swear in witnesses.
That was your cue.
My name is Mark Hewitt. I'm a registered architect in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
You solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you give this board tonight will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I so affirm, yes. Shall I go ahead?
You go, please.
I don't know that credentials have been presented, but I'll be happy to have the attorney give you my credentials. I'm an architect and an architectural historian. I'm the author of 6 books on American architecture. I've taught at Columbia University, Rice University, University of Pennsylvania, and Rutgers University, and the New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've taught historic preservation, I've taught architectural history. I'm an internationally recognized expert on American architecture. I also, just by the by, I actually read T. Robbins Brown and Sky Warmflesh's book for Rutgers Press before it was submitted. I thought it was a good book, and I know Mr. Warmflesh, I know the late Mr. Warmflesh. So I'm someone who deals with American buildings in a national context, in a state context. I've authored a number of designation reports for the National and State Register in both New York State and in New Jersey. And I can tell you that of the 4 criteria that are used for state and national designation, your historian has talked about 2, but in the case of any criterion that are recognized by the federal government, by the state government, or by local governments, this building does not qualify as a landmark, as an individual landmark. It might well qualify as a contributing building in a historic district. I understand it was actually, there was a district that was presented here a number of years ago, but it cannot qualify as an individual landmark. One of the things that our attorney did not say about this is that if you were to designate this run-of-the-mill, rather poorly designed bank building and run-of-the-mill, not even poorly designed, just completely undistinguished theater building, what you do is you diminish the landmarks that you already have at Tenafly. You have wonderful individual landmarks, mostly your early Dutch houses. Those Dutch houses are incontrovertibly important American landmarks as individual buildings. An individual landmark, in order to be designated, has to have multiple significances, usually more than just 2 of the 4 significances. Multiple significances as an individual building, not as a building on a street, not as a building that happens to be a bank, just like hundreds, thousands of other banks in towns all around the United States that look exactly like this bank. Some of them better, some of them worse. It has to be an individual landmark, and in your case, what you're saying is that the bank building is of major architectural significance. And this is your historian basically has said in the preservation here, well, it doesn't have to be major, it just has to be significant to Tenafly, basically.
I'm trying to hear the witness.
Yeah. I'm going to ask everybody at this table to give the speaker the courtesy of paying attention, Lauren and Jeff.
I am paying attention,
Well,
just because I'm
you're
looking at notes.
shuffling your papers.
I'm
Mayor,
looking for notes.
I have not been saying anything, I've been writing notes.
Okay.
You know
So,
And
I'm not sure why,
crosstalk over here.
but I'm not sure why you
Yeah.
said my name.
How I
I'm
do my
sorry.
work, I have notes, go ahead.
In any case,
I know how to look.
Would you like the reporter to read back to you where you were?
yeah, what was I just saying? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
That you are an expert.
No, just wait a second. Wait for the-
I'm sorry, this building is like many bank buildings, but in order for an individual landmark to be designated in any town, in New York City or any town that uses the MLUL preservation laws, and I've written these laws for towns all over New Jersey, you need to establish that this building, in this case, criterion 1, that it is significant from a historical point of view, that persons or events in the town of major significance to the history of the town, region, and state happen here, okay? There's no such evidence on this building or on the theater building, okay? No such evidence. The evidence you presented is piddling, it's ridiculous. Secondly, it has to be a, in your number 2, it has to be a building that is distinguished by outstanding characteristics or rare characteristics of architecture, or be by a major architect. Once again, it doesn't qualify. It's as simple as that. It's not by a major architect. It's not of major significance. It's not rare. There are bank buildings, as I said, thousands of bank buildings, neoclassical bank buildings. Neoclassical style was the most popular style for bank buildings. The first ones were built in the 1890s by McKinley and White. It started a rage. Bank buildings were built in classical styles from the 1890s all the way through the 1950s and 1960s. There are tens of thousands of them. This one is plain vanilla. There's nothing interesting about it. In fact, it's not very well designed. So let me go back to criterion 1. Again, these are criteria that have to be proved by expert testimony. You have an expert who is being paid by you. I disagree with her testimony, but she's not an internationally recognized architectural historian. She's a local historian. She doesn't really know that much about these kinds of buildings. So let me tell you about the criterion 1. most of the bank buildings throughout New Jersey were founded by local business people in the towns, just like this one is. Because that's the way banks were started in New Jersey throughout the state, based on banking laws, based on the way that towns decided to finance things within the towns. So Morristown had banks like this, and your local business people, the people that you talk about, there was a mayor that was part of this, but your local business people are not George Washington. They're not Alexander Hamilton. They're not even governors of New Jersey. They're local business people of no significance beyond, of course, the history of your own town, but that's not very significant when you look at it in terms of criteria that are used throughout the state of New Jersey. So there's historical events. You can't claim that any historical events of significance happened in the founding of the bank. Now, as the attorney said, if you talk about Revolutionary War events, sure, parts of the town of Tenafly had Revolutionary War events, but that's large portions of the town of Tenafly. You can't create an individual landmark on a site where individually nothing of significance happened. So there is nothing in your record that suggests, from an objective point of view, from that of any historian, and that this building qualifies under criterion 1. So let's go to criterion 2. I wish, if I did have slides, I could show you, and I wish I could have done this next month, but I could show you examples of bank buildings, neoclassical bank buildings, that are truly distinguished. Now, one of the problems is, as an architectural historian, if I did have slides of McKinley and White buildings, of New York banks that were landmarked, or even of the better buildings by this Holmes and Winslow firm, and they were bank specialist architects, I'll grant you, this would be one of the worst of their buildings. In fact, probably your bankers didn't have a lot of money because the detail in the building is minimal. You basically, all you have is a couple of string courses and column capitals. The rest of this so-called limestone is actually cast stone. It's not carved limestone, it's cast stone, which was used a lot of the 1920s. It has limestone in it, by the way, but it's not precious limestone, it's not precious marble, it's cast stone. It's a cheap, run-of-the-mill, plain vanilla bank building. Nothing more. Any historian who tells you otherwise is lying to you, okay? Then if we look at the architects Holmes and Winslow designed many, many bank buildings. One of them worked for the firm of Curran Hastings. I'm the author of the only book on Curran Hastings. I know a lot about them. I know that they had many, many employees. Some of their employees, their best employees, they sent to France. And they became famous architects. This particular employee didn't get sent to France, was probably a run-of-the-mill employee. He founded his own firm. I'm sure he was a perfectly decent architect. And he worked on bank buildings most of his career. He lived in New Jersey. That's the significance of your architect, okay? Your bank architects are not Carrera and Hastings, they're not McKinley and White, they're not recognized architects. So if we look at the criterion, by a recognized artist, no. Rare and distinctive, no. It's as simple as that. The answer is no, 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 and no if one looks at these criteria objectively. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to basically accept the opinion of a historian that you paid a lot of money, who doesn't have significant credentials in architectural history, or are you going to talk to historians that do have credentials in American architectural history and listen to what we would say to you? It's your choice.
We have questions to the witness.
Before you sit down.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I'd like to know, since you're an expert, have you ever seen a historic building increase value in a town?
I can't say that I have or that I have.
Okay.
Wait, I
Because I don't
Let Lauren finish, and then
do
you
real
go
estate. I don't
So you don't do a valuation of the property?
I do, but I never do anything with regard to finances.
So you don't do a depreciation or an
Never
increase
have,
rate?
never will.
So what's your basis for your expert testimony that this will decrease in value?
I didn't say that.
I said that, he never said that.
Well, glad to hear that.
And you are an expert.
But I would tell you,
Now,
what we're
um,
selling the building and what have
I'm
you.
glad you're going into this with an
Is
open
a
mind.
sale of this building
You're listening
impracticable
and-
if it's designated?
I can't say that. That's not my expertise.
What inspection did you do of this building's materials?
I read the report that says it's cast stone.
Could historical significant events actually create a historical designation of a building?
Yes, absolutely.
Could preservation of a historical building create a better economy for a town?
Probably, yes.
Max, you're up.
Okay, first of all, you are the witness of the bank. Were you ever a witness for a designation party?
Oh, sure, many times.
For a municipality.
For a municipality or whatever it is.
Oh, sure,
okay.
many times.
So if you were a building that might not be, in your opinion, significant for the country, for the state, can it be significant for a town?
Well, it can, but the problem with that
Okay,
is-
thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now, if it can be significant for a town, now, if the town finds it significant, then that the town has the right to declare it
Not
historical.
necessarily, not necessarily.
Okay, if the town finds it significant, why it's not, why can they not declare it historic when it's significant historic
no,
for
That's
the
not what
town?
the statute provides.
Well, let him
Well, the
answer,
stat-
he's an
because
expert
that's your
witness.
statute. The New Jersey statute, again, I've written these statutes, and there are standards by which significance is designated. So, I teach courses in this, so I talk to my Rutgers students.
We understand that, let's answer.
Venice is of major significance. Your local gas station is way at the bottom. So there's a scale of significance that goes from Venice to your local gas station.
Okay.
If you are going to take a building and put a crown on it and say this is an outstanding building, even in Tenafly,
Yeah.
it has to have significance that goes beyond Tenafly, that makes it a truly significant building architecturally. This is not a truly significant building architecturally. It isn't. So
It's in your opinion, it's not.
But it in nobody's opinion.
Okay,
it's
so
not
let's
a
look at the
significant
building itself, because, there are two buildings, yeah? One is the older building, which was built in 1920. The other one is the newer building. Let's go back to the old building. What is the building made of, the old building?
It is, according to your report, it says it's a brick backup building, so it has some bearing masonry in it. That would be the brick would be brick structure. I don't know what and I don't think your historian says what the roof structure is, but in the 1920s, it probably is likely that the roof structure is steel. It's a flat roof, so there was probably steel put in for the roof because it's a clear span. The steel rests on the brick, and then there's a cast stone next to it.
And what about the
Fairly
facade?
common. Facade, according to your historian, is cast
Now,
stone.
every time I ask a question, you said according to your historian. Have you personally did any inspection so you can render an
No,
intelligent
but
conversation about?
I can if you'd like me to do it, I can.
I don't want you to do anything.
Right.
You are an expert witness, and you are supposed to talk about a building that you know, but you didn't even look at it.
No, that's not true, sir. I'm not talking about a building that I know. I'm talking about reading your report.
Yeah.
And the report has enough information that I, as an expert, and the pictures, that I, as an expert, can make these statements.
And you
They're
can
true
make these statements only from the report without seeing the building.
If I were your historian, I'd go see the building, but I'm not paid to do that, okay?
What independent work did you do on
Excuse
this
me, I
project?
think this gentleman had the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll basically,
Okay.
I'll allow you, and I'll come back.
Are you done, sir?
No, I'll come back. I'll let
Sorry, you can ask.
Okay, so one of the last two questions I have, since you are a paid witness of the bank, yeah?
You haven't paid him.
Yeah, well, whatever, under the table, whatever you guys do, it's important. Okay. Since you are a paid witness of the bank, when you are a paid witness, were you basically interested in finding out if the facts in the report are accurate or not?
Of course I'm interested.
I'm sorry?
Of course I'm interested.
So how do you know that the facts in the report are or not accurate?
That's an absurd
But
question.
hold on
Yeah.
a second,
It's an
all
absurd
right?
question,
Yeah.
sir.
We paid somebody to make a report.
No,
Yeah.
we don't comment.
Okay.
We don't comment on that, Peter.
No,
You-
but we
We don't need
paid
a
somebody to make a
conversation.
report, and he's just, so you're saying we shouldn't believe the
Mayor,
report
Mayor.
either?
No, no, no.
Mayor, let it go.
Oh, yeah,
Max,
yeah,
let
yeah.
it go.
Yeah,
Both of you.
all right.
Excuse me,
Okay,
Mayor,
let me-
point
let
of
me-
order, for the record, who's running this meeting? This woman or you, Mayor?
Well,
You know what?
I put up against, this is,
I've never
Mayor,
seen, I've never
What are
seen
you-
a meeting
We're on the
conducted
record.
like
I'm not
this,
arguing
where
with
the
you, sir.
council members interrupt the mayor, take the floor away from him, interrupt the witness, and they do a tag team attacking a witness instead of trying to be educated on the facts.
Yeah.
And if they disagree with it, ask some
Mr.
salient
I'm not
Sharpie,
gonna,
later.
I'm
Mr.
only
Sharpese,
gonna, I'm
we-
only gonna ask that if somebody wants to speak, Max had the floor,
Yeah, and I'll
you
continue.
don't have the ability to give it to Lauren. When you're done, as chair, I will
All right.
ask
So,
whoever has their hand up to speak.
So
Let
we'll
me
get-
know when you're finished.
I'll be, so the last question is, basically, you did not see the building, you don't know the condition of the building, you're basically making a,
You're making a statement, sir, that may not be true.
you just told me you didn't visit the building.
But your statement isn't true, that I don't know the condition of the building based on your report.
No, well,
Because
that's
I
what the
have,
point
in
I'm trying
fact-
to make.
Because I have in fact, over a 40-year career,
Yes.
seen dozens of buildings.
So let's go
that are
back to my
just like
question.
this building.
Can I ask the
that
question?
I
Let him-
know-
There's a question
that I-
pending. Let him
that
answer
I'm
it.
a-
I didn't
I'm a
ask, he's
historian.
talking about
Sir,
something I
I'm
didn't
a
ask.
historian.
So we don't need
I
to
can,
answer.
one of the things about my expertise, sir, is as a historian, I don't have to visit a building like this.
The
to
only thing I'm
understand
trying to
whether
make
it's
hold on,
significant
hold on.
or
Can
not.
you let the man say?
No, I didn't, I'm asking the question.
Well, let you answer, let him answer.
He
Well,
didn't let me answer. He's
You're not,
posing-
you're not
You're
supposed to answer.
talking
You
to
ask
me
the
and
question,
making
let him
statements,
answer.
sir.
When
But then
he's
you didn't
finished,
ask the question
well, then you
yet.
can repeat the question.
Okay, so let me ask
We
again the
have,
question.
we have too much crosstalk.
So, no, it's not crosstalk, it's simple as this. All the statements you made so far are without seeing the building.
You-
Is that correct?
yes, no, it's not correct. I saw the
No, no.
building. The
No,
building
no,
is
did you
right
see
here.
the building?
No, he's holding
I
up pictures.
didn't
Hold on,
visit the building,
The
okay?
question is, have you actually visited the building?
I have not.
Okay, now
Okay,
hold
that's
on.
all.
Oh, okay, fine. You had your hand up?
Yes, just please.
Yeah.
We have a court reporter here. She can't take multiple people down
I'll
at the
try
same.
to see if I get it.
You
Max,
can't even do that.
Max,
Yeah.
we have a court reporter here. She
Yeah.
can only take down one person at a time, okay? So if you're asking a question
Yeah.
and he's answering, wait until he finishes his answer. If you have something to follow up with, do it then. Because you drive the poor court reporter crazy, she can't take two
Mr.
people
Beal.
down. Listen to me, now you're interrupting me.
Yeah,
One person at a time,
okay,
okay?
okay.
Fine.
Okay.
And-
So the
and-
question I
hold on,
had.
hold on.
Yes.
As chair, I will speak, I will designate the person. You have the floor, but after you ask a question, let him answer it uninterrupted.
Yeah, so the question was, basically, you have formulated your opinion without seeing the building from the document.
Question, sir. That's a statement. You
No,
just
I'm
said
asking
you
question.
have
So you have formulated your
Let him
opinion.
answer
Let me
the
finish.
question.
Okay.
I know what
You
you're-
have formulated your opinion without seeing the building from the document that were presented to you. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so simple.
All right, Jeff, and then if Lauren has something
No,
to.
Tony, I think Tony.
All right, Jeff had his hand up first,
All right.
and then Tony.
How many of the neoclassical style 1920s building like this are there in Bergen County presently standing?
I can't tell you precisely, but I would guess that there are probably one in every town at this point.
And
Sometimes more than one, sometimes more.
And what are you
than one.
basing the guess on? You've been to the 72 towns in Bergen
Well,
County?
I lived in Bergen County. I've traveled all over the United States. I've seen small towns everywhere in the US, and I've also traveled throughout New Jersey. I wrote the guidebook to New Jersey architecture to the AIA. I've seen many, many towns in Bergen County as well as in most counties in New Jersey.
All right, but again, I was asking for a number of how many of these neoclassical style, and we can even add with that particular type of masonry that are in Bergen County, the cast stone architecture from 1920s.
I can't tell you, but it's a ubiquitous kind of building. Okay.
Kind of
I'm sorry,
building. Can you?
I didn't hear you.
It's
Ubiquitous kind
ubiquitous
of building.
type of building. Okay.
What do you mean type of building?
The building type is a classical bank building, meaning that, as I said, in architectural history, we understand that, again, after the Bowery Savings Bank by McKinney White in the 1890s, banks, well, pretty much exclusively, except a few in the Midwest that built with Sullivan, built these types of buildings were their stock and trade. Okay?
So I'm talking Bergen County. So let's say next door in Cresskill, is there such a building in Cresskill?
You know that I can't tell you that.
All right.
So why are you asking?
Well, I'm asking
You said it was
because,
an all.
only because I want to clarify, you said run-of-the-mill, and I'm trying to understand within our county what run-of-the-mill means. And I'm not sure what run-of-the-mill means in our county.
It means that there
So-
are many banks, that this is, if you're gonna build a bank in the 1920s, this is the kind of bank you would build.
Sure, I get
Okay.
that, but I don't know how many are still standing in this county, and that was why I'm asking that question. I understand a lot were built then, that a lot of Model T cars were built then. That doesn't mean they're still on the road. They are of historic significance.
Okay.
Again, if
All right,
no
you're, if I had to give you statistics, I could certainly do it. I
Tony?
would come back and give you statistics,
No, no,
okay?
no.
No,
You got more?
I got,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I got the answer. You
Okay.
go to Tony.
Tom?
Sir, in your testimony, you mentioned two reasons that the borough is looking to designate the bank. One being because of the age of the building, and the other is because of, well, you mentioned maybe famous people, George
Historical
Washington, such like that, correct?
Well, it's actually not age and historical significance.
Okay,
It's-
but then you
it's-
also made reference to the Dutch buildings
Yeah.
in Tenafly.
Correct, that's
So
right.
I ask you this, so how were the Dutch buildings designated? Were they designated based upon the style of the building, the age of the building? George Washington slept there? You tell me.
The Dutch buildings, again, there are actually 4 criteria that are used by the National Register, 2 of which you didn't use. One of those is archaeological significance. Are there likely to be things underground? The Dutch buildings likely have underground, what are called archaeological resources. The third one is, it's really events, it's events, style, people, and archaeology. And so, in the Dutch buildings, all 4 of those criteria would apply, and they would actually apply to those buildings because they're not only locally significant to Tenafly, they're significant to the state of New Jersey and to the nation as a whole. So those buildings have tremendous amounts of significance, far, far above what your bank building or your theater building is.
So for us to designate one of those houses, are you saying that one of the requirements is that somebody of some importance should have been in that house at some point in time?
Well,
from-
the important people in the case of the Dutch buildings were settlers that were major families. I've written about the Dutch. There were the New Amsterdam and the Dutch colony here. These were settlers, many of whom intermarried. Their Steuben, the names of these Dutch folks in New Jersey are extremely significant, even among families. So there's no question that these are people of extreme importance to the state and to the nation.
So there's no correlation between that and the bank then? So you're saying?
Well, I mean, unless one of the bankers happened to be Dutch, I don't know whether that's the case, but in all probability, by that point, the family had dissipated enough that he's not a significant person, so.
Thank you.
Jeff, you had your hand up again?
If I can just follow up on Councilman Barzalado's question. The 4 criteria that you listed, that's for being on the National Registry?
Well, it's also in your ordinance.
That's for being on,
It's in your ordinance, okay? All 4 are in your ordinance.
all
as well.
4, must all 4 be met?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
Not all 4, but of course, a building has greater significance if more criteria are actually part of its
But it would be
designation.
just a single criteria sufficient to be designated under our ordinance?
Under your ordinance, probably, but again, that makes it a weaker case.
Lauren?
Could, historically significant members of the local community, could their actions cause a building to become historically designated?
Yes, of course.
Does anybody have any further questions on this gentleman's testimony? Sir, do you have any more witnesses? Thank you.
It's our only witness this evening. I have a representative with me this evening from Wells Fargo Bank.
Would you like to speak?
Yeah, we'll take a 2-minute break and I can, my client wants to speak to me, so we'll take a break.
All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. I would ask the members of the governing body and the members of the that are testifying not make it much longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah, because we got so much time.
You always said
That's me. Backstage is my life to walk in.
And
Sorry.
65.1.
I have a historically designated need.
Join the club.
65.1 and 62.1. Historic designation. It's just like, you know, what?
I did accept
just as we can do it even if it's outside of the
And the planning board session, that was saying it was.
It's
I'm sorry.
not based on notifications of historic preservation.
What I miss? Can't afford that.
We're not changing the hours just because what we got this he said the zoning map is changing. Got to have
they're operating
the end of the street. You have to change the zoning map.
Whenever you're ready, we're ready.
What?
11 o'clock is what's in the ordinance.
When I'm writing notes, and you are here,
So now, there's 20
For tonight?
Yeah,
no.
I know, I just want to take some of that.
It should be.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to go on next week. I wouldn't dare give you all my stuff. It's worth the thing.
Yeah, but only one of us is getting paid.
If this was one blind, I would say one blind, $50. If it was more than one, it's common sense, that's all I'm saying. If it's one blind, it is.
He's not on the bill list. This is the current bill list. We have to check the requisitions.
Just pay it.
No, I assume they're getting paid unless somebody complains.
All right, ready to proceed? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. No, my office is 2. No, 3. 3, and then the broken one. That DPW said that it was in their budget, because they were going from department to department. No, I didn't know they told her anything. It was just the lady was coming, I had to be decent.
I'm very particular about
It's just common sense. 3 blinds is $500 per blind. It's common sense. If it's 4, all right, if it's 4, then we start getting into the.
It's 4 and it's the split.
Yeah,
it's the split.
Yes, you're not very wide. So then it's okay.
All right, well, I'm missing a couple of people, I'm sorry.
It was done for
Tony's
that
here.
one department.
Okay.
No.
So everything I'm asking is common sense.
Yeah, it has to be more descriptive,
no
or at least put in the notes when
I'm not talking to you, you're
we have a note section where things like that can be
So we
described.
have to bring it up.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
obviously,
so
exactly.
how many people should
You got 20 minutes, somebody can know
with the DPW?
We're not doing committee reports tonight.
But I have to look at the photo.
You said yourself.
Folks, you guys, where's Lauren?
Okay.
So let's go.
That's why I told him I could have her seat.
No,
What?
you can have her seat there.
We could only get a quorum for a few minutes.
Okay, we're gonna have another witness here testify. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Ann Hoblitzel, A-N-N-E, last name Hoblitzel, Vice President.
You wanna swear her in?
Wells Fargo Bank, and
Would you raise your hand? You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give to this body tonight will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
yes. I'm sorry.
I'll ask a question.
Okay, fine.
Ms. Hobbitzel, by whom are you employed,
Wells Fargo Bank,
and how many years have you been employed by them?
9.5.
And what position do you have with them?
I'm the Vice President of Retail Branch Properties in the Purple Property Group.
And is the Tenafly property one in your group?
Yes,
And have you been familiar with the notice that was in the paper, that was brought to your attention about this, or these series of ordinances?
yes,
And have you opposed these ordinances on behalf of Wells Fargo and instructed us to go forward and oppose these ordinances?
yes.
And did you have any occasion to make any calls to Tenafly to determine what was happening with these ordinances during the period of the pendency of these ordinances?
During the time that we were having discussions internally about these ordinances, I had occasion to speak with Mr. McClure, Attorney McClure, about another matter, about the lease that the bank permits parking to the township at no cost on part of the bank property. At which time he told me this would probably never have enough support to be passed.
And
Which
based,
of course was just his opinion, but we never received notice per se.
you never received any written notice from Tenafly telling that this ordinance was
Well,
pending?
the notice may have gone to the
But don't guess where it was going.
taxpayer, tax rolls, but no, I did not.
And Wells Fargo, to your knowledge, never received any notice?
No,
And the property owner, to your knowledge, never received any notice, is that correct?
correct.
No further questions of this witness.
Well, maybe somebody else has a
Okay.
question.
Who is the taxpayer?
Who's the property owner?
Who is?
Wells Fargo Bank N.A. Now, it may, sometimes the tax rolls are reflecting the old deeds and it may
Simple
have been
just answer the question that was asked.
Wells Fargo Bank.
And how are notices usually brought to Wells Fargo from the borough? How do you receive your tax bill?
You send it to the notice on the tax record.
Okay. And do you know if notice was sent to that person?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add to that?
Mayor? No, excuse me. Was notice sent? Because why are we wasting time on this? Was notice
I
sent
don't, I
to the
don't
property?
think anybody,
We'll have to investigate.
I don't believe that anybody here is qualified to answer that.
Okay.
Okay. Jeff?
Ms. Hablato, are you familiar with Christy J. Horton, who works at Wells Fargo?
No, I'm not. I'm not on the retail operations side.
I didn't say she was.
I'm just explaining to you
Okay.
that in my position, I work in corporate properties group. I manage the portfolio of retail branches in New York, Connecticut, parts of Pennsylvania, and all of New Jersey.
Where is your office? It might be helpful to know that.
Summit, New Jersey.
Okay. Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because she's Vice President Marketing Manager and Corporate Heritage Manager and former Vice President Manager of Archives and Collections. I just wanted to know. because-
Certainly.
That's it?
Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Sir, you have anything else?
I just have a statement to make. Do you want me to make it now, or do you
Well,
want to wait?
if you have no other witnesses,
No
you
other
can make a
witnesses?
closing statement, yes.
And again, I'm sorry for sitting the entire evening, but I have a bad knee and it's impossible for me to stand the whole time.
No problem.
In relation to what's being presented to you, it appears that some of you have already made up your mind. It appears that some of you are just trying to defend a defective report. It appears that some of you want to accomplish something, but we don't know what it is. What you want to accomplish, what it appears like, is to destroy your downtown businesses, to destroy the property values in your downtown, and to cause the sentiment to be out in the community of Bergen County and throughout the state that Tenafly is not friendly to business. Tenafly, because of a few on a historic preservation committee, get a brain jammer that downtown Tenafly has to be deemed historic, which it isn't, except for the train station. Tried 10 years ago to have the whole downtown deemed historic. You had the same Robin Brown report. Nothing was changed, nothing was updated, but you, excuse me, you were able to get this introduced. And it's not the right thing for the town. If you want this building to be marked with a historic plaque, we're happy to do that. If you want us to donate a model of the building so you can have it outside next to the model of the train station, we'd be happy to do that. But don't discourage businesses from being in your community because somebody on a historic preservation committee decides that all of downtown Tenafly, and maybe now since we couldn't deliver all of downtown Tenafly, the movie theater, look at that. What is historic about that building? Our bank building, there's nothing historic about it. But because somebody said it, you're now all hopping on the bandwagon. I love history. I love to go and see beautiful buildings. I love to go to Venice. I love to go to Rome. But I don't like to go and looking at an old bank building. One of the gentlemen, I believe, in the council asked, well, how many of these type bank buildings are there? I'm gonna give you the towns. Go to Fort Lee, 2 of them. One on the corner of Old Palisade Avenue and Main Street. One on the corner of Main Street and Lemoyne Avenue. The old United Bank building, the old People's Trust building. Go now to Teaneck. There are at least 3 of them in Teaneck. Go to Englewood, 3 in Englewood.
Should
Go
your
to-
closing be the information that was brought before the council? I think you're testifying.
Are you again running this meeting?
I am an attorney.
It's good, I'm sorry to hear that.
You're incorrect. He's making a closing statement.
And the closing statement is limited to the testimony.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
It should be.
No, it's not.
We're in court, so.
This isn't a court
We're in
hearing.
practice, so I want to make sure I don't run across it.
Sure.
I practice law in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Any can.
Could you please read back, Pam, where I was when I was rudely interrupted?
You were counting the number of neoclassical buildings.
Excuse me, I'm trying to have the reporter read it back. Thank you.
There are at least 3 of them in Teaneck. Go to Englewood, 3 in Englewood. You want me to read more?
Okay.
Do you want me
I ended at Englewood. You go to Hackensack, there are at least 4 of these exact same type of buildings in Hackensack. You go to Ridgewood, there are at least 5 in Ridgewood. And you go throughout the entire county, you'll find cookie cutters of these. You'll find cookie cutters of this bank building. There is nothing historical of this. It's a cheap, old bank building that was made by with precast stone, as your own expert report pointed out. Now, one of your council members had to prove a point. You didn't go and examine the material. He didn't have to examine it. We're accepting what your expert said it was. And what your expert said it was makes it not historical. So he didn't have to go and confirm that fact, but that's the only fact you have. What I'm trying to get across to you, don't cause Tenafly to waste money, destroy its downtown, destroy its commercial enterprises on a whim. You have no reason to declare this building a historic building. There is nothing historic about it. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment on this particular ordinance?
Ours is a different one.
Well, okay,
I'm not commenting on his.
There's gonna be another one? Okay. Okay, so we're talking about 18-17. Lisette, where are we in the process now? We've closed the public comment, so I'll ask a councilman to make the motion. Who would like to do that?
I'd like to make a motion. I would like to postpone the vote on 18-17 for the next meeting to get a little bit more additional information.
Well, hold on a second. Before you do that, Lisette, if we postpone the vote, how does that allow us to have additional information? Are we going to open up the public hearing again?
No, once public hearing is taken, it's closed, and there's no postponing of the vote. It would be tabling, taking further action. And then again, there's a motion, a second, and then to remove it from the table. You can't vote on it until you remove it from the table.
All right, so the motion could be to table the vote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we do that, let's say we table it till November the 19th, what rights, if any, do the objectors have? Do they have an opportunity to speak again? Does the council have an opportunity to discuss it? What ability do we have to introduce new evidence, if any?
Well, before taking any consideration, any action, you have to vote to remove it from the table.
Right.
And then you discuss among yourselves what further information you receive, if there's a letter, a report. Public comment was already taken on this, however, people could speak during the regular public comment portion of the meeting.
So they have no opportunity to discuss any of the discussion we have in November the 19th before we vote.
Only on the public comment
But
section.
the public comment section will either come well before
It
or
will come well before.
after, so they won't know what we're going to discuss. So,
But you could take it from the table, you can put it back on the table. Just because you remove it from the table doesn't mean you're going to act on it. You could just say, all right, we'll take that into consideration.
When we bring it back
and put
on
it
the
back.
table, they'll have a chance to look at the new.
Who will?
The opponents and us.
no, that's
No?
what I'm trying to get at.
If you receive, let's say, a report or documentation, that could be part of a work session meeting for you to review it.
Okay,
And that has
so
nothing
hold
to,
on.
and that has nothing to do with removing from the table.
You made a comment, Max. What do you think is going to happen between now and when you put this back on? Say, we need more information. Well, what kind of
Okay, so
information are you
what
seeing,
I am
thinking about
trying
getting?
to, I would like to bring back the historian for her to listen to the testimony and come back to tell us if that is defendable or not, if it's correct or not, or she has other arguments that makes it. Basically, I would like to hear, we never heard really a testimony of our historian. Here, I would like to hear that after she listens to the comments were made by the witness.
Keep in mind, I'm not saying you should not want to do this, but we pay our historian for her time.
Yeah,
Probably $100, $200 an hour.
yeah.
So you're gonna ask her, I'm not
Yeah.
saying don't do it, I'm just laying it out there.
Yeah,
I wanna
that's
hear
right.
you say that's what your
Listen,
intent is.
this is
You
gonna
wanna
be an
pay the
expensive
historian
proposition.
to listen to the testimony and then come back and report to us.
Yes.
Okay.
We know that if what happens, we might end up in court. That's expensive litigation or so. Before I do that, I need to understand better, personally, if that testimony that was presented to us is defendable, if we have better arguments, and if our historian has better arguments, so we can make an intelligent decision on what we want to do.
Keep in mind that our historian was charged with coming back with a report. She did, and in her opinion, the building could be declared historic.
Yes.
The witnesses tonight were charged with explaining to us why, they
Peter,
both
I
had
understand. You asked me, yes, I understand.
I'm just
I
trying
wanna
to get a
get-
sense of what
yes.
you think is going to change between now and then.
I want to understand if, all right, so basically I want to be able to, now that from our story, that we can stand on her and she can defend it in court and we have a good chance of winning. That's what I need to understand from our historian, because that's what is going to make, at least for me, the decision on what to do about voting.
Okay. So,
I just want to make one more comment procedurally.
I wish you would just raise your hand, please, okay? So this way, there's no mistake. You'll be recognized immediately if nobody else is speaking.
I yield to the gentleman from Peoria.
Procedurally, we have noticed on our website, in our borough newsletter, in our borough bulletin board, in the newspaper, we post our agendas, we post our planning board agendas, we post our zoning board agendas. Those are made public, which includes anybody in and around our downtown area who lives within Tenafly. They receive that information.
Keep in mind that many of the property owners in downtown Tenafly don't live within even 10 miles of Tenafly. And there's no, that's why in some cases.
That's why it's on our website.
That's why in some cases, notice is required. Right now, the issue, as I see it, is we have somebody from suggesting that notice was required and was deficient. We have a borough attorney and our administrator who don't believe that's accurate, but I think we're going to check on that. All right. So I think that you know, I don't believe it serves us well to denigrate the people that come before us to testify. We know why they're here. They don't want the building designated. Everybody that comes before us, whether it's for the swim club or the Chamber of Commerce, everybody that comes before us has an agenda. We should politely listen to them. If we don't agree with them, that's our prerogative. But arguing with people that are speaking before us, I don't think serves us any purpose. So, a motion has been made to table the vote. Is there a second?
Second.
Vote on which ordinance, all of them? Or
No,
1817?
1817, it's only 5 of 10, we've got just 3 more ordinances to go,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the agenda.
Yeah.
So, the motion has been made and seconded to table the vote on the on the designation of the bank building. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barcelato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bosch?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
I love it when we all agree. Okay, so this has been tabled.
Point of order. I don't believe you ever closed the public hearing.
I did.
You did close it?
I
Then you
believe I
cannot-
did, although the court stenographer might disagree. It was my intent, after you closed, to close the public hearing. I asked if anybody else wanted to speak.
But I think you need a motion and a second.
No.
Okay,
No,
fine.
no.
That's not the way we ever do it. So,
And one other thing, sir. If you are going to be considering any other witnesses, any other testimony, any other documents besides that which is before you today, you have to open it up again and present it to us.
well, I will rely on my borough attorney.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Good.
So if we're going, so Lisette, so what I've heard 2 attorneys say, of course, there's still a whole bunch more in the room, that we will have to reopen the public hearing. if there's more testimony, because what Max is asking for basically is more testimony.
Yes, that's it, basically.
And one last thing, if you are going to then open it up, can we have the benefit of that more than 24 hours or hand it to us at the night of the meeting? We have just a reasonable
Well,
notice?
I would believe it is our intent, our next meeting is on November the 19th. It's a Monday night.
Correct.
Feel free to join us.
We plan on it.
Okay.
My point is, if
I
you
know
get-
what your point is.
If you get additional information before that night, we'd like to get it at the same time that the council members get it.
Okay, you can do that.
In many cases, if not all cases, the information is given to the council for a Tuesday night meeting on Thursday.
No,
Yeah, but it's,
Friday.
but
Friday?
Peter, that's work, you know, it's work product material that we
And
discuss.
first of all, we have no knowledge of whether or not
Yeah.
the historian that was hired by the HBC is available, because Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, quite often, they're booked solid, and it takes us a while to get
Although I
any
think
work from
she
them.
may be semi-retired.
So we'll notify when she comes in, as much as we have, you have the notice, and that's the end of it.
All right, well, I'm going to ask our administrator to reach out to Karen Noose, who's the chair of the HBC, let her know what went on today in 1,000 words or less. And maybe you could, I don't know, would we ask her to contact the historian?
Yeah.
All right, and ask her to get back to you with the response.
Okay.
All right, and then let the members of the council know. And, you know, if we're going to proceed, I'd like to give this gentleman as much notice as possible.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can we
I
get
love
to
that
the
kind of
theater
joke.
building so we can be
Yes,
done with this?
we're on to the theater building. So,
Okay, do you have any
No,
witnesses?
that's 1820. 1818
We
is
do
the Bauer
1818.
Auto.
well, I said, because somebody's here,
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's-
take it out of order.
Oh,
All right, there's no need like you
Robin
to
Brown.
spend as long a night as we are.
He's the one who wrote that.
So,
Misery loves company, come on now.
we're going to open the public hearing on 18-20, which is the theater building. Would anybody care to speak?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the clerk wants to read a notice, I don't really care personally.
No, we covered that in the
Okay,
beginning.
you kind of both. Okay, thank you. Gary Hall, McCarter and English, representing Bowtie Cinema, and they actually, I sent you a letter yesterday. I don't know if you got a chance to read it. It was delivered. You may have it, you may not. I'd ask, and you can jump ahead and say, I'd ask you not decide tonight, because I think there's been a lot of passion shown tonight, and I think cooler heads should deliberate on this. I think it should go with what happens with the bank building. But that's your decision, and on all of this, I've heard a lot of this and that, but the governing body, you have a hearing and you control it. You don't need our permission to do anything. Mr. Shapizi, you're trying to work with you, and just to, I hate to raise up old issues, but the notice issue, he said at the beginning, he was really trying to be a nice guy and say, by the way, we have this issue and we're gonna tell you tonight, rather than holding our back pocket.
Mhm.
But I'll move beyond that. The movie theater is actually, we don't have to answer it later, it's actually owned by HJM 441 LLC. And way back when, in May of 2017, I think, they got a notice that this was being considered by the Historic Preservation Commission. For ease of convenience, I'm going to use the term Bowtie Cinema. Excuse me. Oh, this.
Do you have a date on that notice? I'm sorry, did you
I don't
say-
have it with me, and I don't think it's relevant, quite frankly. It was before the HPC meeting, which I attended. They gave me one adjournment because it was kind of last minute. Mr. Hewitt, who will be recalled, attended that meeting with me in this room. I saw somewhere, looking at the paper, it was July 7 of 2017. So we were here. But let me jump ahead. The movie theater, Bowtie, they operate the theater in town, and they're happy to do that. That's their business. But it's not a charitable operation. They're not a nonprofit. And as a property owner in this country, if they choose to close that theater, that's their absolute right. And I'm not making decisions here. I'm the lawyer, I'm the messenger. And my instructions are clear that they don't like someone interfering and wanting to micromanage how they operate their property. And their perception, my perception, here it came from me, because they weren't in this room, that the overriding goal is to keep a movie theater open in this town, not to designate a historic property. And I'll ask Mr. Hewitt if that's his perception as well. And that's fine, but that's not historic preservation. And to say we're only regulating the exterior appearance of your building, there's a saying, I'm from the government, trust me. They're businessmen. They don't trust you. I'll be honest with you. I'm the messenger, I'm not them. They will seriously consider closing the theater if you do this. It's their right, and they don't like being pushed around. That's how they perceive this. They're operating a theater, they're in business, and there's no intent to shut that down, but they don't have to do that, and it's not their lifeblood. If you go on their webpage, they're a big company. I was surprised. I went on and looked myself. I thought, oh, they bought a couple theaters in, from Clearview Cinema in this area. Some were closed, some weren't. This is not their lifeblood. This is not a mom and pop. They can close it if they choose. It's a closely held corporation. That's their option. But back to, I'm just giving you that message because so there's no misunderstanding. They will exercise all the rights and options if this is adopted. But the reason is that they see no justification for it. And I'll call Mr. Hewitt he was here before, and I'll ask him, I'll try to be brief, but I'll say this as well. I sat here and listened to the interrogation, I'll say, of Mr. Hewitt. As I view it, it was adversarial, it wasn't fact-finding, you're trying to find fault with him. That's not objective fact-finding, which is what this council should be doing, not trying to justify a predetermined result, because that's how we see it. Mr. Hewitt, you were sworn previously. Why don't you?
Sure.
I'll try to be brief, but much of it is the same. But you were sworn. Do you want to swear him again? I don't know.
Sure.
No, he's still speaking.
No, but it's a different hearing.
You have to.
Raise your
Okay,
hand.
so, okay.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give this body, like,
I so affirm.
Before we
Hewitt,
do that, can I just, Mr. Chairman, can I reply for a second to the gentleman who made the opening?
Reply?
Yes, for a second, yes, I have something to say.
Max.
No, but we need, it's very important.
Yeah, I'd like it on the record, sure.
Yeah, on the record, we said, this is not the government trust us. Our ordinance is very clearly defined that only the outside appearance of the building is what we keep to preserve. So all the stuff that you have brought up, that they're gonna close it and stuff like that, they can close it tomorrow, but we are not preserving the interior, we're not changing, asking them to do it. It's only and only the outside appearance, and only the outside appearance towards the railroad. So it's very important for you to know that, because it's not a trust me baby.
It is. I've read your ordinance, and guess who regulates? The Historic Preservation Commission. That's who regulates. And that's who said this is a historic site, which, and the bank building, which you say we disagree with that. So
No, the issue
they're the
is that
same
exterior
people that we
versus
think
interior.
wrongly
All right,
recommended.
Okay, I think
They're
you
the
don't wanna.
ones that, they're the regulators.
Yeah, but you don't wanna listen to what I said, oh, it's okay.
No, I listened to what
Swear
you said.
that,
I'm
yeah.
just disagreeing with you, disagreeing with me.
Okay.
That's my right. Thank you. Mr. Hewitt. Is there more questions from me?
Well, I do have a question
Oh,
for
sure.
you.
I mean, go ahead.
You're in practice, you're not on a retainer you don't work on a regular basis with this LLC or Bow Ties, and they've hired you to do this?
Well, the law firm does a lot of work nationally for this.
Well, nationally, but, okay, so.
This is my first, I think there was one other passing
I'm
involvement.
trying to get whether there's a level of familiarity between you and your client. The reason I'm asking is you made a statement. The statement is, and we all know, we're all adults here, we're all businessmen of one type or another. We all realize that if somebody's running a business, there's no way that, unless it's national security or a safety issue, that we can stop a business from closing. We understand that. My question to you is, did somebody in the executive branch of this company say to you, tell them if they designate the front of the building, we're going to consider closing it, or is that a concept that you came up with?
No, and it's in my letter.
I'm sorry,
I'll
you don't
read
trust
it.
the government,
No,
I
since
don't
you ask,
trust
I'll read
attorneys.
it, I'll read it. It was delivered to you, I asked you to all read it with time, but, and this letter was delivered yesterday because the client wanted to see it and go over it before it went out. So it was delayed. I wanted to get it out last week in the hopes it would go in your meeting packet, but we held it till we got the sign off, and so they've read and approved this letter. It's not my imagination, it's not my theory, and it says we will exercise all right options, including closing the theater.
Okay.
So that's not me making that up.
You answered my question.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Since I was under the impression actually that Bowtie locally was a mom and pop, so it's actually great to hear that it's a closely held corporation. So if this became a thriving downtown historic district, they can afford to renovate?
They can afford to do whatever they want, independent of that.
It's not, believe me, it's not a mom and pop operation.
All right, so let's.
No, I invite you, there's a webpage, because that was my assumption too.
Right.
Bowtie Cinema, they've been around for 100 years, they own multiplexes, this and that, supposedly held corporation.
Okay.
They're big boys, so this is not their lifeblood.
All right.
Let's have the next start.
Okay, Mr. Hewitt again. Real quick, before you open,
Sure.
let me just set the stage. I made some representations. I was here in July of last year with you, is that correct?
You are indeed.
And I presented my perception of the focus being on keeping the local theater.
You did, yes.
Why don't you start with that, and then you can talk about what else happened at that meeting.
Well, I mean, I think Garrett's correct, and I have gone to Bowtie Cinemas in my town. I live in Burgersville, so I know they do operate theaters in small town, downtown areas. So I've seen them keep theaters in downtown areas, and I certainly support that in Tenafly. I don't think there's any reason why Tenafly shouldn't have a theater. So from that point of view, it would be tragic, I think, for the theater to not be there. But that doesn't have anything to do with the building. You just have to have this to do with the company that runs it. I also testified at that meeting, and I almost prefer, although there isn't a good summary of my testimony, unfortunately, that I know of that I've seen. But I made the same basic arguments that I made on the bank. The theater is a bit more complicated, and I wish, I don't know if you have the report from your historian, but the theater is more complicated because it was changed, and it was essentially renovated, I think in the 1920s, although my memory may not serve me, to create basically the facade that you see today. However, it doesn't have all of the elements that it had in the 1920s. So what we call integrity, from the point of view of its integrity, it's not quite as good in terms of maintaining all of its historic characteristics as even the bank building. That being said, even in the 1920s, when it had a small marquee, and when it had some plaques on it and a string course, which actually has been removed, I don't know by whom. The building started out as again, a fairly run-of-the-mill theater building with a marquee. It was a storefront type building. Its materials are not terribly distinguished, and it's not by a distinguished architect. Again, I will say, and I can't count the number of theaters in Bergen County. There are many theaters like this in Bergen County and throughout New Jersey. Small town cinemas, some of them have been converted into concert halls. They're of course bigger than this one, but this is a fairly small and again, not architecturally significant building. Once again, I think you're making a mistake if you think that and I'll talk about court, if you're gonna go to court with this, and I hope you do not. I don't think it's worth it for you to defend this in court. But if you have to defend it in court, you're going to have experts that like me, talk about national, local, and state significance. And if you're going to say that because a small town in New Jersey, Tenafly being a very nice small town, but somebody from a small town in New Jersey thinks that their theater building and their bank building are significant, and that is enough to designate a building, you'll lose. You can't make that case. These ordinances are based on standards that architectural historians write, people like me. And if you try to simply say, we in Tenafly like our bank, and we think our bank is handsome and wonderful, and that's why it should be designated, and it's the best neoclassical bank in Tenafly, that argument won't go anywhere in a court. And that's basically what you're saying. You've got a historian that says it, you've got some of your members of your committee that say it. That is patently indefensible. When you say, well, it's of local significance to us, that's indefensible in a court. You can't simply say, well, if we think, you know, the 20 people in a room think that it's of local significance, we like it. It doesn't, that's not how it works. These ordinances are written based on standards that architectural historians and historians have established through writings, through books, through all sorts of things. And you'll see in court that if you try to defend this based on your own local significance, it won't work, even though you like the theater. Same thing with the persons and events that are significant. Now, your historian at the Preservation Commission meeting made a very impassioned, actually I think it wasn't T. Robbins Brown, it was another member of the Preservation Commission, made an impassioned plea that like many towns, lots of people remember this theater as being a place, a warm place that people love to go to watch movies from the 1920s all the way through now. It's been run as a theater. That kind of thing, sentiment, that's wonderful, again, but it's not something that is generally going to move a court or somebody in the National Register to designate a property. The main aspect of this that your historian harped on was that a family that owned a realty company here in Tenafly, a local family that owned a lot of property, did in fact own this theater and kept it in operation. And I can't argue with that. Again, if that family was locally significant to you, that's probably the best argument you have for this designation. But it's not a very powerful argument. Again, it's a local family. It's not a family. It wasn't the governor of New Jersey. It wasn't a senator of New Jersey. It wasn't somebody that anybody outside of probably a few people in Tenafly would recognize as a person of great historical significance. So, once again, it's a weak argument, and I think from an objective historical point of view, the building does not merit designation, again, on these two criteria that of four that basically are in your ordinances. The criteria are simply there. I wish I had seen, quite frankly, under those criteria, some fleshing out of why the theater building met those criteria. I haven't, again, I heard your historian testify to that. I didn't hear anybody in terms of the bank testify about that. But it's a weak case, and it's basically the same argument that I made for that.
Any question?
Yeah.
From the testimony. Lauren, you had your hand up first.
Okay.
What research did you do on the Saban family?
I wasn't paid to do research on the family, so I didn't do anything, no.
Are you aware that they were one of the first Jewish families dating back to the early 1900s here in town?
Unless it was in the report, I'm not aware of that. I think it probably was in the report, though. Okay?
Did you do any research on Daniel Atwood and his family?
Atwood I know something about, and he was, I think, was a prominent architect here, so yes.
Are you aware that he owned this land?
I read that in the report as well. Mm-hmm.
Max, please.
Yeah, so in your opinion, if you look at the theater by itself, the point that you find to be objectionable to the designation is, one, the inconsistency of the building. Is that correct?
It does not have all of the features that it had in the 1920s. That's one point. The other point is that even if it did have those features, it still would not be a distinguished building. But the fact that its integrity has been compromised is a problem. If I'll flesh this out. If I were to write a designation report again for a town, like let's say New York City or the state of New Jersey, and the building were missing string courses and classical details like this, they would throw it back and say it's not eligible. That integrity is that important to a designating agency. So I'm telling you, if those things are missing, that would probably remove it from qualification in most jurisdictions that I know about.
Okay, and the second part was that it was not a significantly enough of a building or family or historical events that took place at that place to compensate for the lack of integrity. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct, generally, yes.
And the two family and events that Councilman Dayton mentioned are not enough to compensate for that.
In my opinion, no.
Thank you.
Any other, before we go in, I just gotta ask Lauren, the Sabins owned the building that Cotique is in. I just skimmed through the report on the theater, and I did not see any mention of Sabin for the theater. They owned 7.5, 8, which is the Tavern at Cotique.
Theater. This is the theater. The theater building was constructed around 1916 by Morton Sabin.
I'm sorry, you're right, Isaac Sabin.
And
Isaac
yes,
Sabin.
and Israel
Okay.
Sabin
I
created the
stand
first
corrected.
Inglewood
Thank you.
synagogue. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Tony?
Sir, you made reference to the building was built when? What year?
Well, it says 1916. I think
It's earlier.
again, I believe it was renovated, but there was an earlier building on the site as well. So
Do you know why it was renovated?
I think just to spruce it up, but I'm not certain of that.
No, actually, that's incorrect.
Okay.
It was renovated because a crane went through the building,
Okay. That's fine.
which is actually an historic, it's,
What year was that, Tony?
oh God, now you're gonna ask me that.
Roughly, was it the 50s, the 60s?
I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna say the late 50s.
So 61. Sorry, it says 1961 here.
Is there a question, Tony? No. Okay. Any other question for the
Yeah.
person who's testifying? Do you have any other witnesses? or you
Well, I
want
just
to
have a
close
follow-up
this?
question.
Historic crash.
That's an historic crash, that's right.
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask that. Does the fact that a crane might have crashed into the theater in 1961 make it a historic site? Is that relevant at all?
No, that
Well, I doubt it. I mean, there are, if it were the Great Chicago Fire, and a cow kicked over a bucket and it
Well, I
ruined
think-
half the town, it would probably be very historic.
I think
But
the most
crane-
relevant part of it means that in 1961, the building was significantly renovated.
Sure, it was, yeah.
I'm
the
assuming
fact-
since the crane
Not
hit it,
significant.
it probably hit the front of the building, because I don't think it would come through the middle.
No, I think it hit above, didn't it?
Yeah,
It hit
and
above.
I think it hit the second floor.
Yeah,
Probably.
we're not sure what the facade.
But the question that I would have, if I may ask again, is that what contributed to the renovation, the accident, and the owner tried to rebuild it according to what it was before. So it's not that the building has been changed as a structure or as details. It was a renovation due to an accident to bringing back where it was before. So the inconsistency of that, it's not inconsistent, it's just had to be created, repaired.
Yes, but it's of no consequence in terms of let's say Mount Vernon had a bird crash through one of the windows, and they decided to put plate glass in the window instead of putting back the correct glass. If they did that, Mount Vernon would be a lot less historic than it is. So what I'm saying is that whatever their reasons, they didn't replace, and it may not have been the 1960s, may have been the 1980s, but they didn't replace the string course, they didn't replace the things that would have made it more handsome. That's all I'm saying.
All right, thanks. That's all I have, and I'll just close and I'll repeat again. I urge you to take a step back, deliberate, and think about before making a decision. You've carried the bank application. I ask you to do the same thing here. Whether you need more information or not, you don't need to talk about that tonight, but just table the decision for tonight.
Anybody have any comments before I ask for a motion?
I'd like to vote on it tonight.
I'd like to say something before we make a motion, and I'm not going to vote tonight. I find this one a lot easier than the bank. And I've made my feelings known about this before. We started out with 5 properties, now we're down to 4. This is a very peculiar building. I don't know how familiar, Tony might be familiar with it from the fire department aspect. It's a very unique building that, frankly, if it wasn't a theater, I don't know what other use it could be. At some point in time, maybe 10 years ago or so, it went from having one small theater, they made it as a mini multiplex. Okay, at that time, they did about as much renovation as they possibly could on that building. All right. Since then, they've added a sound system at great expense. They brought it up to be as probably as good a theater as they put new chairs in it. The only thing they really haven't touched is the facade, which is the one part that we're looking to consider as historic.
To preserve.
Jeff is witness to the fact that on many summer nights while doing those concerts, I've said to numerous people, including I think Jeff, that block is wonderful. It looks great. I could never at any point say that it's historic, but I think it's nice. I'd love to see it preserved. If there's somebody that feels that things should look a little more similar, I dispute it. I think it's neat, from the bank building, which I think has a beautiful look to it, to the theater, to Cotique. I think it's kind of neat. I really do. To me, it's a pretty block to look at, and if it never changed, I'd be very happy. I don't believe that facade will ever change because it's a theater, and what else are they going to do with it? And I think the look adds to the theater. I don't think there's anything they could do to that front of that building that's going to make it a better theater. And I think they realize it too. They're big-time operators. I don't see anything historic. That's my opinion. You can speak next. I think I like the look. I'd like to preserve the look, but I don't see how it meets any criteria. 1916. That of course now it's 100 years old, but I don't think it's going anywhere. And I worry about some of the things that were said in the testimony that I'm not sure that we should be telling property owners what they can or can't do to their buildings. I was pleased that one owner came forward and said, I support this. I'd like to preserve my building. Please designate it. I get no problem with that. I even have a difficulty when people that own older homes don't want their homes designated, and we consider designating them. So I don't know if you want to vote on this tonight, but I've given you my feeling. And Lauren, you had your hand up, please.
I wanted to respond to the allegation as that this is a predetermined result, because I don't think that Mr. Hull and whoever else said that realizes how much work and how many months have gone into analyzing this situation and these 4 buildings that are before the council. And of course, let's start with the HPC. They have done a yeoman's task of researching the history, of getting architects, of getting engineers, of getting experts here. They are tasked to preserve the character and the charm of our town. we as a council came together and said we want an experience of our town, we want the feel and of charm to be preserved, and that's why we initiated this kind of effort to see if anything would be designated, could anything be designated. This was never a predetermined result. The council here was presented with numerous months of testimony by the HPC. We went through the planning board. We went and consulted with our architects, our experts. So we have been educated about this process. We have reviewed this. In the process, one of the buildings we did decide not to designate, and that is part of the process. I think that Railroad Avenue is an experience. I personally am hoping to revitalize our downtown. I don't think putting a whole lot of steel buildings in the center of our town is the correct move for our historic town. We are in a historic town with old houses and beautiful old roads and parks. So for me, I think that this would add to the character. I hope to improve business. I don't think this will be a negative effect. And to me, I'm thrilled to learn, like I said, that Bowtie can afford to renovate it, because truthfully, we find that people don't go to our theater in town, and they're going to the newer ones, because Bowtie hasn't renovated in so many years. We're losing business, and our restaurants are losing business on Saturday nights. And I hope that that sentiment gets relayed back to the client here. So let them put some investment and come experience our town.
Since she's looking at me, I'll respond.
I'd rather you
She's
just-
looking right at me as she's saying that.
That's okay.
And I say, we'll get the transcript, and they're gonna, my client's gonna hear everything you all said.
Wonderful.
Including your fact that, including the mayor's comments and everything else, so.
That's why it's there.
But I did not say,
Question for you.
I said they're wealthy, they have enough money that they can walk away if they choose.
I would-
And that's what I've been told to say.
Okay.
Let me read it again.
No,
I'll
no,
read it,
please
because I
don't,
didn't.
sir,
That's okay.
please.
I'm trying
I'm
you
trying to
close this,
maintain
sir.
I'd
Well,
like to
I
vote on
was
this tonight.
contradicted, and she disputed what I said. I think I have a
Didn't
right to
dispute
defend
it.
myself.
I'm saying something original.
to be honest
Read my
with you,
letter,
I-
please,
I'm-
because as I
I'm
said, the
being honest
client
with you,
read
sir.
it, it came from them, it's not my imagination, it's not my fiction.
I believe, I've listened
Thank
to
you.
both of you very seriously. I don't think she's arguing with you, I think she's just making a statement, which I don't.
She was looking right at me
Well,
while
that may-
she's saying it,
that
I'm
may be.
sorry,
You're a
but.
good-looking guy.
Well,
Hold on a second,
No
Tony.
comment.
I would just like to say that everybody at this table can speak for themselves. I don't believe that what was stated is totally accurate. They did put new chairs in there. They did put new sound system in there. If anybody thinks that the Tenafly Theater is going to be able to compete with the multiplexes that are at the Garden State or the Riverside Mall, they're kidding themselves.
Okay.
People come to our theater not because it's the most modern or the greatest. They come because it's convenient. If people want that whole experience,
Possibly charming.
well, and charming, and I believe it is charming to a point. It is what it is, and I don't want to go to war with Bowtie or with this attorney. And
I
when somebody,
apologize if I
when
offended
somebody
anybody.
says that it's predetermined, I think we need to look at the way we interrogated witnesses and our demeanor, because that's what leads them to believe that maybe we've
They'll
already made
survive
up
that.
our minds.
Trust me, they'll
It's not our
survive.
job to argue with witnesses, it's our job to listen to them and ask questions.
Yeah.
Tony?
And Peter, I agree with you 100% concerning the character of the town, for sure. I'm the longest amongst anybody living in this town. But, so how do we preserve it without designating it as historic?
Well,
Because
that-
certainly, if the theater wants to do whatever the hell they want to do,
That's the million-dollar question,
Well, there you
okay? Take a look at the bank building. Do you really think that if we don't designate that building, that facade is gonna be knocked down? What are they gonna do with
We
that
don't know.
building? Is it possible? Yeah, but you wanna know something? A couple of years ago, the rumor was that the theater was gonna be closed down. And actually, despite the denial of the owner, I do believe that there was an ad that one of the real estate people saw that the building was for sale. I don't know how well you know that building. It's not going anywhere. Would be a very, very difficult building to sell, and if somebody wanted to come in and put a steel building there, they'd have a lot of problems. There's not a lot of space. There's a culvert that goes underneath the building, which is in bad shape. I'll be honest with you, I'm tickled to death that that theater is there and still operating, and according to what they told me 2 years ago, they intend to stay. Now, I'm not disputing what's in that letter. They may get ticked off and decide, but, you know, these are all things that we have to take into account. Jeff?
Okay. Being almost as long as Tony in town, how many years?
Close.
Close.
I got
We're
news for
pretty
you.
close.
I was coming to this town before both of you were born. I didn't live here, but I was coming to the Clinton since I was 2.
Or-
And I'm gonna tell you how many
Anyway,
years that
look,
was.
my point is,
I grew up in Teaneck,
over the years,
People's Trust Building.
Mayor, over the years, we've had a lot of stores come and go. We've had buildings that have changed significantly. I just want to read, this is actually a quote from a letter that was written in 1975, and it's something for us all to think about. It was a letter to dear Mayor Bean. Is it not cruel to let our city die by degrees, stripped of all her proud moments, until there is nothing left of all her history and beauty to inspire our children? If they are not inspired by the past of our city, where will they find the strength to fight for her future? Americans care about their past, but for short-term gain, they ignore it and tear down everything that matters. That was written by Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis.
Before or after Penn Station?
It was about.
That was after, because the new garden opened up prior to that.
Right. And I think part of the point is we do have an obligation. There's a lot of evidence that these buildings have historic significance to our town and to the community, and that they have contributed to the way our town has developed, that there are people who are historic in town who have been associated with these buildings, so that I'm not troubled by at all. We've looked, as one of the attorneys said, this council first looked at, but never, I believe, voted on the issue of a historic designation for the downtown. I don't think there was a district ever that came before the council for a vote.
It was quite a few years ago, I believe.
But-
Did it come to a vote, or did
Because
it?
I understand from the
Long
HPC,
before my
it
time.
never came for a
Whatever.
vote. And then after that, the HPC looked very carefully, culled through all the buildings to see what, if any, were significant. They found 5 they believed. This council, for whatever reason, whittled that down to 4. So it's not something that we've taken lightly. It's not something that we've just done tonight. It's had a very long history with a number of hearings through 3 different boards, bodies, including Planning Board, Historic Preservation, and this body. That's not just sitting there saying, coming in tonight, it's a fait accompli. We're still discussing it, obviously.
And you know what, Jeff? There's no right or wrong. We get paid the big bucks for our opinion. And that's all it is an opinion. And Lauren, if you and I disagree, your opinion is just as important as mine. You may say yes, I may say no. Okay,
All right,
this
but
is
my point was that we do not come in predestined. It's not like this is taken lightly. This has been taken very seriously, and it would be sad to see all that effort to try and preserve the historic charm, beauty, and nature of our downtown because we're afraid, or because we want to put economic interests above, individual economic interests above the economic interests of the overall town.
Okay, so we have 2 options here. As I see it, I'm going to close this public hearing. I'm going to ask the council for somebody to make a motion either to approve this, and we could, of course, vote no, or to table it. I'm not sure why we'd want to table this any more than I'm not sure why we wanted to table the first one, because, you know, we just spent over 2 hours on this, and if we table it, we're gonna spend another 2 hours, and I'm not sure that there's gonna be any new information that's gonna change anybody's opinion. At some point in time, we are paid, we have to make a decision. So, what do you folks wanna do?
Make a motion to vote tonight. Anyone want a second?
Second.
Please.
Can I say something too
Well,
before the vote?
we have to, first we have to read the,
Board already read.
oh, we already did that. Okay, yes, Max, what do you wanna say?
We vote and there's a procedural issue.
For me, The fact that the theater was built by Israel Sabin, who created the first Jewish community here and created the temple in Englewood, it's a very important and significant historical fact. So while other people might agree or disagree if it's important, it's in the eyes of the beholder the decision to make it or not, if it's important. And even if we have to go to a judge, we can always argue that this is the beginning of the Jewish community in Tenafly, Englewood, and around that. I missed that in the early process of this theater, and I'm so glad that you have brought it up. It switched my vote. So I'm willing to vote tonight.
Okay, just keep in mind, although I don't think we should be intimidated by the threat of legal action, I think we need to understand as we vote what that course of action will lead to.
Yeah.
And if we are in a position where we're not going to win a court case, and we incur the costs of a court case, I'm not sure how prudent that is as far as our responsibility.
That's why I was
community.
basically talking about a historically significant fact.
Yeah, but I don't know how much weight, if any, that will play in.
It's the facts are in the eye of the beholder. For me, is very
Yeah,
significant.
well, you're not going to be the judge.
We'll
Okay. Anyway, we'll call the question, please.
Can I just ask one more thing to Lizette? A procedural defect, can we fix it by the time it goes to the second?
What?
We already have the
This is
second
second reading.
Let me say one
Yeah,
thing
can you
though.
weigh in
We have
on
the
that?
same, on a different issue. Since we have the same expert, all right, for both the movie theater and for the bank building, and it's likely that we will reopen, if we're going to consider any other evidence, that we're going to reopen it. I would think that you would want, that Mr. Shapezi here was going to bring Mr. Hewitt in, and if we're going to hear from him with respect to the bank building, why not treat the two the same, since they're the same expert? It just makes sense. We have the same people here.
I think we have different arguments, Bill.
There may be different arguments, but
So if there is
We should
issue
go
of
for
the
it.
historical, Bill,
I agree with that.
if there are issues about the history of the building, significance and stuff like that, we understand that, and that's why personally I asked for the tabling over there. At the same time, we could not find a significant historical fact that would overcome that for the bank building. But in my mind, we found a very significant fact that makes the building historical for the theater building. So while the witness is the same, excuse me, while the witness is the same, there are different arguments for each one of them.
We're talking about the procedural notice issue next.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
I-
on the procedural notice.
Oh, Bill?
I wasn't addressing that, I will in a second.
Yeah.
You said that the fact that you heard with respect to the Saban family's relationship to the building changed your mind.
Yes.
All right, so that reason alone should give you pause to say, if we're going to hear from our own expert with respect to issues related to the other building, that you think you should.
I understand.
Should you then say, should that fact have changed my mind? Because you're saying, well, I was thinking the other way, and now when I
No,
learned
I
that-
didn't say, I was thinking to table.
Oh.
I didn't have a decision on that. I was thinking to table, but the fact that, there are specific facts that are, but I agree with you that my emotional issues should not be a factor in the final decision. It's not an issue of my emotional issue, it's a question, is that historical or not?
Yes.
And that's where my decision was.
So, and Lauren, getting to your question on the suggestion that there's a procedural defect, that being the notice issue. Tabling it to another date would not cure that
We'd have to
problem,
figure out
if in fact was a problem.
if it's
Because
an issue.
Because it's a prerequisite to having the actual
First
hearing, actually, having this, the ordinance considered. I don't necessarily agree with it, but to answer your question, no, of course it wouldn't cure it. It would give time, of course, for you to reassure yourself whether or not there was a procedural defect, because
Okay.
you could then decide not to act on it and just put it through the cycle again, of course.
Can I ask a question, please, Bill? If we make a decision to notify today,
It wouldn't change it. So
Wouldn't
go
change
there,
it.
No.
Okay.
Unless you decided, but now you can't because you tabled the other ordinance. So the
Is it
consideration.
your recommendation we table this one too?
I think that makes sense.
For all four or just these two?
Well,
I believe it would be.
Might as
I
well,
get to
I
that
don't
one,
wanna go,
but-
I don't wanna do, we have so much more on the agenda.
Yeah.
Why would we not just table all four?
Need to
You-
withdraw
you-
the motion to adopt and then have a motion to table the remaining ordinance.
I object, because those people didn't pay for a lawyer to be here opposing.
Well, send them a bill. Send them a
What is in
bill.
favor?
I mean, we are trying to help you.
I'm only,
We are trying to help you, make your bill bigger and bigger and
no,
bigger.
no, you don't, I don't need, I don't
Yeah.
need a
Can
bigger.
we remove that motion?
Since Lauren made the motion, she has, if she wants to withdraw it, it has to be.
Okay, motion withdrawn.
Okay. A motion to table all the three remaining ordinances?
Motion to table it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Good job.
No, wait, that's not.
We have another ordinance though.
Has to be a vote.
Salary ordinance. Anne Marie, please.
This has to be a roll.
Wait,
It has to be a roll call.
salary counts.
Wait.
Roll call.
A roll call on the table.
Pam?
The roll call on the table.
Councilmember Barzalato,
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Bosch,
God, yes.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
No.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, the following ordinance published here with the first read by title only on October 9th, 2018, and published on the bulletin board of the lobby of the municipal center.
You can't leave.
Public comment on,
You're here for.
Public
He has to
comment
read-
on this
he has to read
ordinance?
the title. The title has
Ordinance
to
number
read.
18-22, an
You want me to
ordinance
sign
to
up
fix
there?
salary, wage, or
Please.
compensation of certain management, administrative, civilian dispatchers, and part-time employees of the Borough of Tenafly in the County of Bergen and State of New Jersey for the calendar years 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Public comment.
Public comment on this particular ordinance? I'll close the public comment section. A motion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bosch?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Go back to the consent agenda, let's just finish this.
Before we do the consent agenda, I know there's at least one person that wants public comment, so.
Yeah.
Sir? Just state your name for the record, please.
Mayor, thank you.
Still remember it.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for your time.
See you on the 19th.
I thought you were looking it up.
Mayor and council, thank you very much. Sam A. Bruno, 69 Ivy Lane, Tenafly.
It's historic.
My presence here this evening is as a resident citizen. I do not express or represent in any way any other individual, natural person, or entity. Lizette, belated congratulations. Be careful what you wish for. While we're at it, if I may request these two emails be entered into the record. One is an email that I had sent yesterday and an extremely prompt, professional, and substantive reply from Lizette. Thank you very much, belated on that. I'm here after having shared the evening with you here, a matter of realpolitik. Some might call it a soft toss issue. very simple and straightforward. It's a borough-centric, student-centric, employee-centric, school-centric issue, which has to do with voting that still goes on in certain buildings of the school district. Point of emphasis, I'm here as an individual. Still, McKay Elementary School and Tenafly Middle School are sites of voting machines. Voting machines are great, but given the insanity and where we are as humans on the planet, wherever, those are no longer, in some people's opinion, those are no longer acceptable or wise. So I'm coming here this evening asking, requesting you as standard bearers of your parties, as representatives, I'm coming to ask you to use all your powers and all your skills to help using the system to change this as soon as possible. This is not ego-driven. This is not a money issue. This is not even a, to the best of my knowledge, as a layperson, this isn't even a legal issue. This is a stop the hot air going over the Larnix issue. This is a sit down with a map and look to see exactly what can be done. And then this is an issue for either pillow talk or text or telephone calls with the higher ups in Hackensack or Trenton or wherever to get this change done. Mr. Mayor.
Let me assure you, first of all, when Lisette was the clerk, we had major discussions on this issue. We met with in transiency with the Board of Elections. However, the times they've changed. I've seen they've made decisions in other communities getting the voting out of the schools, but each community, of course, is different depending on the dynamic, the location of acceptable buildings. We've had, prior to your emails, Lisette and I had several discussions about this, and after the first of the year, we were already told that there would be no change in 2018. But after the first of the year, we are going to do a full court press on, there's a new person heading the Board of Elections. We're going to sit down and make a presentation and do to the best of our ability, get the voting out of the middle school and McKay. That's our goal.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. If I didn't go to McKay, my kids didn't go to McKay, I'm not a McKay domiciled person. But if I was any or all of those, I'd be sitting back and I'd be asking myself the question, what is different about McKay School and or the middle school than Stillman School, than Smith School, than Mom School, than the high school?
We see that, we understand.
And there is not parity when it comes to that.
Well, we're going to do everything we can in our power to get this resolved.
But it can be resolved.
Well, I agree, but unfortunately, the final decision is not at this table, but we will put as much pressure as we possibly can. The first thing we can do is we have to prepare a reasonable and logical, plan. Thank you. And that's our intent. The problem is, in the past, there's no place for those two things to go, but we're going to find places for them. We do have the wherewithal to put them in, even if we have to put them here, we'll get it done.
Well, you can't overload by more
Well,
than,
that's
you can't overload 3, and it has to be within 1,000 feet of the district.
That's what's kept us from getting it done to this point. But in other communities, I think they've made exceptions, so we're gonna have to look for an exception here.
But this is where I would say that political coin and markers have to be called in. And it's not a matter of bare knuckles, it's just a matter of common sense. It's a matter of moving this to the head of the line, because this is something that is tangible. This is something that has to do with here
This
and
is-
now.
I can tell you for myself, and I doubt that anybody's going to dispute it, that I will give this the highest priority after the first of the year. We're gonna get this done.
I have a question. And I'm gonna ask our borough clerk this question. Has, at any point, has anyone written to Senator Weinberg at any point on the state level to see what kind of changes we can make as to, you know, the numbers, election laws, things like that? Or do you know of anyone on the school board who has also written, and I'm asking our clerk this?
Now, I don't know about the school board.
Mhm.
I haven't. The reason why Mom, Stillman, and Smith were changed was that they did not meet the federal ADA accessibility requirements. For Stillman, you had to go into the middle of the school. For Smith, because of the way the building has all this interference, the doorbell chimes, people couldn't, it didn't transmit, so the poll workers couldn't open it, and with Mom, that wheelchair lift was an issue. So it was for federal ADA accessibility, why it was moved.
Does
And
the
like-
state determine it or just federal?
It's
polling
both.
places?
It's both under
Who should be
HAVA,
right
the
to
Help
it?
America Vote Act, and Title 19, which is the state statute for elections, so it's they're dual.
Weinberg about Title 19?
Title 19 is where you find what determines a polling place, and polling places have to be certified by April 1st of every year.
It will be a lot quicker
So-
of dealing with the Board of Elections than trying to get Senator Weinberg, with
So-
all due respect, to
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
the state
Absolutely.
laws.
Yes, but I'm just
Yeah.
asking if any efforts have been made on
Determined
that
if
end
I
as
have to chain
well.
myself to
I know
Hackensack.
organizations have, I know the Board of Elections, the statewide have, and the argument from the Board of Elections is it's twice a year, and schools have the option to close for general election day, and its security is not an issue because then the onus is on the Board of Ed or the municipality to pay for police, which we do out of my election budget.
Are we
for
putting
overtime.
extra police this year in those
Since,
locations?
for the past 3-4 years, ever since the first go around, we were told no. I had police work for primary and general election when it was all the schools. And now that I'm down to 2 schools, I still coordinate with Chief Chamberlain to have a police officer for the primary and election.
If I may, and I realize it's late and you guys are on
Overtime.
time and a half.
Fumes.
3 times.
The issue here, though, if I step back even more, not as a citizen, again, people have been, they're brain dead from reading headlines and hearing noise from people who desire to do the right thing, yet there's always an obstacle and there's always a situation. These obstacles have to be cleared. Otherwise, what is the point of talking about safety and security? What is the point creating focus groups to discuss what can be done, should be done, can't be done? There has to be an accomplishment. This has to, in my humble opinion, this has to be made a priority, because with no disrespect to the history and the heritage and anything else, using tonight's soiree as an example, that does not impact children, students, employees of this borough. I'm not discounting the value of your time or what happened tonight, but these are the issues, in my opinion, that need to be brought forward.
I told you I would give it the highest priority, and more than that I can't do.
I don't think we should wait till January. I think now,
They're
They're not
not,
gonna
no,
I know
do
we're not
anything
gonna
until
change
the
it now,
election.
but I think it's important to at least raise it on the
They don't wanna
warrant.
hear it now, they're in election mode.
Some are in election mode. Senator
they-
Weinberg is not up for election this year.
But
Neither-
she's not the decision maker here, it's the Board of
Yeah,
Elections.
yeah,
Okay.
we bring issue that, this is the Board of Election issue.
But you can make some sort of.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No polling and no elections.
Mayor and council, others, thank you very much for your time.
I'll entertain a motion to close, to approve the consent agenda.
Oh, is there comments?
Wait a minute, did we do the roll, did we do the roll call? No, we
Yeah.
didn't
Wait,
do the
there's
roll
another
call.
public comment.
For what?
Grants that are in DPW are both news.
What?
I mean, look at this.
No,
Yeah.
not, please not.
Well, we have new business too.
We're doing it for, we need a motion for the consent agenda.
I asked for a motion for the consent agenda,
So
please.
moved.
A second,
Wait, did you have any issues on the consent agenda?
No, I don't have any
a
additions.
second, please.
Second,
I'm just going through making, double checking my mind.
A second, please.
Second,
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bosch?
yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
I'm gonna finish reading the list for 1 second, just to make sure. Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
we have new business.
Huh?
New
Matt, did you
business.
have expenditure?
Sorry?
Did you have questions on the expenditure?
I
saw
had,
an
I
email.
already spoke.
New business, would somebody like to introduce the ordinance 1823, please?
So we're gonna hold till the next meeting, everything under for the good of the order?
That's at the work session. We're gonna finish the public meeting, and then we can decide if we wanna go back to the work session.
May I ask a question, please? I would like to make a modification to the agenda. Should we do it now or something?
What type of modification to the agenda?
On the agenda, on the closed session, there is a contract negotiations agenda. I would like basically to move that for a special session. We're not gonna have time to pay the detail necessary understanding that we have. It's a bit complex. And if I may have, Lizette, we're gonna have a special meeting, closed meeting, on the 30th or something like that, which you have suggested.
What day
I
of
would
the
like
week
to
is
put
that,
it over
Max?
there on that date.
What day is the meeting?
What is, I'm sorry?
Was it?
The October
well-
30th? That works.
We have to discuss that in closed.
Sorry?
We have to discuss that in closed.
To discuss it in closed.
Yeah.
Move it?
Let's have the entire discussion in closed.
Okay, so they changed the
In other words,
agenda.
let's
in other words,
just-
listen, hold it. We get to that, and I
Yeah.
read the closed session resolution, right, motion,
Yeah.
right? Then we go into closed, and you can say, oh,
Let's
this,
take-
this thing we
Okay,
should do.
so it doesn't have to be, because I thought it has to be in an open because we changed the agenda. That's all.
No, we're still, no, because,
We're not
because
gonna
we
change
would,
it, we're gonna table
we
the
actually
discussion.
would discuss it for about 2 minutes and say we're going to discuss it again in a different one.
Okay, good. All right, perfect.
Please, somebody read the ordinance
Sure.
1822 or
23,
23.
sure.
23?
I move to introduce and pass on first reading ordinance 18-23 and set the hearing for November 19th, 2018 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter in the Tenafly Municipal Center.
Second, please.
Second.
Please.
That's it. I lost it.
Ordinance number 18-23, an ordinance to amend and supplement chapter 35, the revised general ordinances of the boroughs Tenafly entitled Land Development Regulations, and more particularly by amending sections 35-716, 35-718, 35-721.8, 35-721.12, 35-721.13, and by adding new sections 35-721.15 and 35-721.16.
Okay.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
No.
He's not here, he's not here.
He's not
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Oh, I thought
Councilmember
Yes.
Bosch?
He said yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Thanks, Bill.
Committee reports, quickly, abridged. Anybody have a committee report?
Yeah, I have a committee report. The Board of Trustees of the Senior Center met. 3 important things. The audio-visual systems have been installed. They're just waiting for 2 plugs, so they're beautiful and working. They have made a donation to the Tenafly Nature Center for a generator, and the generator got installed. That's the second part. They're gonna have the I forgot the name of it because I'm tired.
Craft fair?
Craft fair, yes, on November
26th.
26th. and they already have more than 30 tables already that they were booked, so it's very, very successful.
We
And
should
they
get the people running the street fair to take a lesson from that.
Exactly.
I made a lot of money.
All right, it's good, let me finish this one. And there was a lot of conversation, and there were about, for the senior citizens, they want a place where they can use it during the storm and emergency, to be able to come and recharge their batteries, warm up and stuff like that. That's a whole thing that Peter wants to propose. It was discussed, very important. We need to address it because it's important for them.
You know what, let's put it on November 19th under to be considered.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else have a committee report? Thank you. Under mayor's remarks, you know, I don't know what to say. We spent 2 hours, and, you know, each one of us has to decide whether or not we felt that those 2 hours were well spent. And, you know, we end up tabling, and the thing that concerns me is we're liable to spend another 2 hours the next time. We have to be better prepared to make decisions. I think you could anticipate, you know, from the first hearings at the HPC, Jeff, to all of the things we've had here, the bank has been represented. We knew they were going to come and oppose it, and nothing they said really surprised me. I don't know how you felt about it, and you know, it's a matter of budgeting our time better. We're not going to get through a lot of things tonight that we wanted to, that we needed to get through, because we spent 2 hours coming to a non-decision. So, you know, it's okay if you feel that we're going to be better qualified to make a more educated decision in a couple of weeks, but I'm not confident that that's the case. So I think we got to think about how we're handling these things. Do you folks want to go back and go to the work session now and cover to be the for the good of the order? And
Yeah.
Let's toll some of those.
Yeah.
We have closed session.
Well, are we going to do the closed session first and then
Well,
go
it's
to
part
the
of
work
the,
session?
part of the public meeting.
Do you want to agree to toll all the for good of the order right now?
Sorry.
All right, so
Everything could be pulled from
Everything
the
could
work
be
session
pulled.
except the block party request.
all right, so
Because
let,
it's
no,
time
I want to go back to the work session for and do the correspondence, etc. So
Oh, that's right, right.
read the
Yeah.
closed session, Bill.
No, what we
Wait.
could do is adjourn this meeting, continue the work session, just
Okay.
to gloss over everything, and then go into closed session.
Motion to
Okay.
close the public meeting.
So
So-
moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're on, back in the work session, the administrator's report.
Everything can be held, the only thing I wanna highlight is the Halloween celebration, it'll be at the basketball courts, and staff will keep an eye out to make sure nobody goes over to the Oval. Transportation on election day, it's being coordinated, we have 2 people registered already. And with the Roosevelt Monument, Susan and I were able to coordinate with Bob Carpenter to get the limestone joints addressed, and we got the purchase order, and I told him to go ahead, so at least
Which one's that?
Very good.
Roosevelt.
the monument.
From last.
Any news on the tree planting?
No.
The winter, great winter.
No news on the tree farm.
Yes.
And then the next meeting, we have to discuss the best practices inventory.
Okay, under correspondence, we have a letter from one resident about the dog park. Does anybody feel a necessity to respond to that letter
No.
at this time?
No, we've been through that 100 times.
Okay, the next is a block party request. I would assume that's for functionary. Nobody has a
Yes.
problem with that. And Paul Keys, a letter about the tree ordinance. I'm going to tell you, I got a call. While we're talking about the tree ordinance, I think when maybe after the first of the year, I don't think it's necessary to discuss the tree ordinance at this time. And with the new council, we can look into it. But I just want to relay a call I got today from a resident who wanted to speak to me. They're taking down a couple of trees. They're building a house or something, and they have to replace it with 19 trees,
Mhm.
which I haven't even started to look at this thing. This is we all want trees, but I tell you, a lot of these people consider our tree ordinance to be tough. At the same time, the feeling at this table, and me included sometimes, is maybe it's not tough enough. It's a very, very difficult situation. And once again, there's no right or wrong, it's what our vision is for this town.
Exactly.
Okay.
I would
Well,
like
just, Mr. Mayor, since I put for the good of the order a discussion of tree ordinance, I would like to have Mr. Keys there, as he suggested, for discussion, and I think he had said from the Environmental Commission.
Burroughs consultant
Can we
arborist.
wait till the first of the year, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
But I would like to make sure that the chair of the Environmental Commission is present, if we have an arborist.
Do we have this guy, Paul Coey?
And Paul Keys.
Paul Keys is a
I know who
landscape
Paul Keys is,
architect.
but he wants Paul Coey to come.
All right, so
Burroughs.
because we're here very quickly, I want to congratulate Susan, who did an audit on the trees. And she found out that we are having $300,000 almost of trees in an escrow account that were neither basically pulled into our tree fund or some because nobody's going to check what happened to those trees. They're more likely abandoned, but it's $300,000 worth of trees that we can have in the account to plant.
Well,
Well, not
before,
300,000, I just want to.
before you spend that money, the building department has to give Susan the okay.
Right.
These
That's
things-
what,
This is what I'm doing. I am reviewing all the escrow, and we're trying to speed up their review. There's 300,000 in escrow, but I think maybe half of that would have to stay in escrow.
that's right.
But it looks like there's
Still a
quite
ton
a
of money.
considerable
Significant
amount of
money.
money
A ton
in
of
there.
money.
All
Right.
right, so anyway, I would like to put with an invite to them, as he suggested.
I'll
Yes.
I'll tell them to save the date, and once we do the calendar, I'll confirm the actual date.
Thank you.
All right, senior center, Lauren?
I'm gonna toll it till next time.
Okay, field maintenance and usage software, Lauren?
That's, just very quickly, I wanted the council to know that I'd like to discuss, new field maintenance, equipment that we share with the Borough of Education, with the Board of Education, to coordinate for both rec and, co-sponsored sports. Because on the field maintenance, it's usually we're reacting, like Jamie gets a call, the field's not done, instead of proactively knowing what needs to get done and upcoming. Just part of the efforts to maintain and do stuff. So I've sent a few options to Lizette. I haven't talked to her yet about it. I've sent some to Jamie as an idea. Jamie, doesn't believe we need something like this, so I
Who
want.
doesn't?
Well, Jamie says we have something, but again, I'm getting the calls from the sports and as rec liaison that it's the maintenance is, like I said, reactive. That you show up to a
What
field.
sports have called you?
Let's see, softball, lacrosse, football, soccer.
Football's on artificial turf.
No, not the little guys. Not the little guys. I'm getting calls. A ton of the soccer, weeds to the knees. I've been on them. I'm on these fields with my own children, so I see things. But anyway, the idea is that it's a coordinated effort between Tommy's team and our team, and it would be one piece of software that everyone shares.
Yeah, and we
Wait.
have a software
bring
like
it
that, a task management system, which we deployed in DPW. We should be able to deploy the task management system
If we own
over
it,
there.
great.
Yes, we do have it. And then we,
That's part of closed session.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
anyway, that's the idea. I'd like to bring this up with board of
Worst case
at
scenario,
the
so we
joint
do
use.
joint use
No,
agenda
that's
item.
That's on the,
it's
that's
on
on
the. I
the
put it
joint.
on the agenda, but I wanted to let the council
It's
know.
been on there before.
Good.
I put it on there.
Thanks.
Okay.
Coming
That's the
attraction.
whole thing.
Okay, so I believe that's the end of the work session. Bill, you want to read the closed session?
We need to close the work session.
No,
No,
that's
we
good.
close the work session once we close the closed session.
Yeah.
Resolve, resolve in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, Mayor Council go into closed session. Discuss the following matters, some personnel matters. One is family medical leave update. Right. And another one too, right, and a special meeting for personnel discussions, another one. And the collective bargaining matter, it's just an update on contract negotiations, which I believe do something else on. And this will be taken this meeting and released to the public at the time. Matter resolved, after this closed executive session, the mayor and council will reconvene in the Richard D. Wilson Committee Room right here to adjourn this work session.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. So moved.
Second.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
We got 3 people saying aye, aye, aye.
4,000 left.
Yeah, cause when it's done, we have.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They contacted somebody.
Sugar, sugar, sugar.
5 to 4.
I thought I'd see a smile when I walked in the door. Thought those arms of yours would be open wide, but where they were before. Why do you look at me like I'm some stranger tonight? Why do you pull away when you used to hold me so tight? Don't you love me anymore? Have you learned to live your life without me? Don't you love me anymore? When did the fire go out? Where did the feeling go? Did it slip away when I wasn't there? Well, now I've come home. I thought you'd want me back. I was so sure you'd ask me to stay. I thought you needed me still. Guess it didn't work out that way. Don't you love me anymore? Have you learned to live your life without me? Don't you love me anymore? Darling.